Hello everyone. Thank you so much for joining the Customer Marketing Summit today. We hope you're enjoying the sessions so far. We know there is a huge amount of talent within this field, so we wanted to give a special shout out to a few superstars with the Customer Marketing Excellence Award. We have been overwhelmed by the number of nominations we have received, so thank you to everyone who took the time to submit their nominee. It was a difficult one to narrow down, but I'm delighted to share with you now the runners-up for the award. And now for the big announcement. I'm delighted to confirm that the winner of the Customer Marketing Excellence Award April 2021 is... A huge congratulations are in order. Now to hear a few words from our worthy winner.
Hey everyone, it's Trish Lalison Bautista, Senior Customer Marketing Manager at Gong. Customer marketing, at the heart of it all, is all about storytelling, recognition, relationships. Prospects for our companies trust us more because we're uplifting the authentic customer voice rather than just talking about ourselves. So it's an honor to receive this award, but it wouldn't be complete without me highlighting the people who are responsible for my success story. I want to thank my marketing leaders at Gong, Sheena Badani, Julian Savage, and Udi Ledergore, for giving me an environment where I can thrive and experiment. We weathered the challenges of 2020 together, but because of your work in building such a powerful brand, my life as a customer marketer is a lot easier. To all my colleagues who nominated me, thanks for your support and for connecting me not only to your customers, but to your projects as well. In my career as a customer marketer, it's always been my job to highlight the customer, to put them on a pedestal. I'm more behind the scenes, and I'm sure a lot of customer marketers feel the same way. That's why I'm so grateful for this award and the Product Marketing Alliance for putting customer marketing, our function, in the spotlight. Thank you.
The Product Marketing Alliance membership is an incredible resource for product marketers with all types of experience.
It's definitely a goldmine of information and resources, from the Slack community to the templates and resources.
I can go out and see how are other people thinking about their growth strategies or product adoption. How are others thinking about the best ways to do customer interviews, or how others are setting up the content and customer advisory boards.
There's some great real life examples that I can either make a copy of or take as inspiration and really make my own.
Getting access to the videos and the templates is more than worth the cost, because you get to see what the top PMMs are doing and how they think.
From persona frameworks to go-to-market templates to articles written by experienced product marketers, this content has become an additional resource to help me succeed at my job.
My personal favorite is the mentorship program. It's definitely been a game changer for me.
When I have some planning time available, I love to look at the different videos and conferences that they have posted. I always love to hear how other companies are handling some of the challenges and opportunities that product marketing has.
I could then figure out what's the best way to adapt for us, as well as look at how other people are implementing them. So I can ultimately do the work of 5 individuals as a solo PMM.
Whether you're just transitioning into the field or you're a product marketing expert, I think there's content and materials that are useful for everyone.
And as someone looking to break into the role, I get a good grasp of what I should be doing and also what will make me successful once I do.
And the best thing is that as members, we get access to new content all the time. PMA constantly keeps adding more materials, articles, and tools.
This whole program's been very validating for me in my career.
And so I highly encourage you to check out.
I believe they keep pushing the bar and supporting their members to ensure that we become experts in the field.
As we prepare to unleash another exciting session, we just want to say a massive thank you to all our partners, sponsors, you, and our ensemble of speakers and participants for helping us bring this pioneering event to life. I hope you are finding today's sessions insightful, and I want to remind you that the learnings don't stop here. If you haven't already, you can upgrade your pass to include access to all today's sessions on demand. Or you can become a PMA member and benefit from unlimited access to exclusive templates, frameworks, and our entire back catalogue of event content. And remember, this is your chance to get involved. Please share your feedback and questions in the comments section for our speakers to answer. It really is that simple. Now, back to the sessions.
Thanks for joining this session of the Customer Marketing Summit. I'm delighted to be here with a great panel today where we're going to be talking about pivoting in a pandemic. My name is Rebecca Nerad. I'm Vice President of Customer Success at E2Open. We are a leading provider of supply chain and channel shaping solutions. I've spent most of my career in customer success, although I did have the opportunity to lead a marketing team a few years ago. And I'm really glad to be here today with Denny, Larisa, Lisa, and Alex. Why don't you take a moment and share who you are and why you're interested in this topic of pivoting in a pandemic? Denny, let's start with you.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Rebecca. So my name is Denny Hollick. I am currently the Senior Manager of Customer Marketing at Unbounce. So Unbounce is a company that essentially helps all kinds of businesses build landing pages quickly and easily so that we can get better conversion rates on your marketing campaigns. Prior to that, I led product marketing and a lot of our growth marketing for fintech innovation lab, and was the marketing director for one of Canada's first robo-advisors up here called WealthBar. And so currently today, just leading the Unbounce customer marketing team. We're responsible for essentially driving the user behaviors that make customers most successful within Unbounce. So a lot of that is activating them, keeping them engaged, and making sure that we keep them around for a while. I'm definitely personally interested in this topic, mostly because I thrive in chaos a little bit, to be honest. Prior to working in marketing, I was actually a law enforcement officer. And so I was always able to kind of keep my head level when I was under a lot of pressure. And I think for the most part, I've kind of transferred that over to my office career as well too. So definitely really interested in just kind of pivoting under pressure and how to make that work.
I have a colleague who says she likes to open Pandora's box and then see what she can do with it. Made me think of that. Alex, would you like to introduce yourself next?
Absolutely. Hello, everybody. Really excited to be here today. My name is Alex Virden. I'm a senior manager of product marketing at a company called EVERFI, and we address key social issues through education across the United States and the globe. And why I'm so interested in this topic is at the heart of product marketing is really keeping the customer focused and at the center of all we do, from positioning to rolling out new products into the market. So this past year has seen us have to pivot quickly and address customer needs in rapid time, and always make sure that we are keeping the customer in mind and not all of the chaos around the situation of the last year. So great to be here.
Thanks, Alex. Larisa, over to you.
Sure. Thank you, Rebecca. Hi, everyone. My name is Larisa Sandu. As Rebecca mentioned, I am the head of customer marketing and advocacy at Peakon, which is a Workday company. I've been in the customer marketing and advocacy space for over 6 years now at various different B2B SaaS companies. So I'm very interested in the topic of customer marketing, and especially in times, as kind of Denny mentioned, times of chaos and during a pandemic. So a little bit about Peakon. It's the largest standardized database of employee feedback worldwide. We focus specifically on voice of employee. And as of recently, we do focus very much on diversity, equity, and inclusion, which has been a really hot topic during the pandemic. Specific to the topic, I'm very interested just because 2020 was an immensely difficult and, of course, unpredictable year for everybody. And I think it's been able to challenge me personally, and I think customer marketers in general, and kind of shock us in a way that we've been able to have lasting effects, on our personal and professional lives. And we've kind of had to put aside our marketing hats to a certain extent and really expose our humanity to our customers. So, and to the peers, to the world. And we had to really show our vulnerabilities. And I think that's actually what has helped us stay together, as marketers, as people. So I think, yeah, this year is going to change everything for customer marketing and everyone else.
Awesome. Thanks, Larisa. Lisa.
Thank you, Rebecca, for having me on the panel. Really appreciate it. I am the head of marketing at DigitalRoute for the Americas. I also lead up their Salesforce practice marketing. DigitalRoute has a usage data platform that converts raw usage data into billable items. So we help companies across their monetization for quote to cash, finance system consolidation. We were really well known in the telecom mediation area. Now we've branched out into other areas and for enterprise businesses. So with the pandemic and being in marketing, consumption's been a really huge thing, right? And a lot of these business models where it's been very flat fee or even older business models where consumers have traditionally been billed by the month or by the year, they've now found in the pandemic, hey, if I don't drive my car every day, why am I being billed every day for it? So this is where our platform has really come into play and helped companies be able to kind of pivot quickly as consumers are driving those business models forward to, I'm not going to pay for the things I'm not using anymore. But as a marketer, I can't think of a single company in the pandemic that hasn't been affected one way or another. And in both my professional and in my volunteer role, I've seen businesses that are either at risk or have been able to move beyond all the effects of the pandemic and all the ones in between. In my current role, part of what we're doing and moving from 2020 into 2021 is just pivoting and setting up to be more of a hybrid approach around, what customers need, more, kind of what Larisa had mentioned, being more empathetic, continuing to humanize the brand. How do we relate? We're a small business too, but it doesn't mean we don't relate to what the larger businesses and in those smaller divisions are going through. And I think one of the most important things that I've learned is just to, again, ensure that we're hyper-focused on personalization and interactivity as people start to get fatigued from virtual things that are happening around us.
Thanks, Lisa. We already hit around some of the major topics I think that we're going to get into today when we're thinking about the major shifts that we've seen over the past year and how we've had to adapt our business model as a result. Let's go back to Lisa. Do you want to share some about what you've done or some examples on how to engage with your customers?
Sure. And I know, like I kind of touched on a little bit in my opening here, the pandemic really has, from a virtual, setting, in-person versus virtual, and what we were able to do is really forced a lot of organizations to rethink how to reach prospects and customers where they provide it, where are they at, where are they heading, the virtual event fatigue, and do we move from virtual events to virtual experiences? And I've seen a lot of organizations do that. I was in 2 organizations. One, I moved in 2020 to a new organization. So in both of my organizations, I kind of saw how the fatigue was setting in and how do we quickly pivot now to say, let's stop talking at them and let's start talking with them and creating more of those virtual roundtable experiences, more of the smaller one diffuse that we would be doing in person, where we were able to get in front of them and try to make it more engaging, doing more of a 15 to 20 minute talk, and then having, a virtual sommelier experience, or something where we maybe offered something around sporting events, or something that we could do that would continue to engage and make it interactive, so that we could talk to our customers and network with them, but not always just doing that, we're talking at them, but providing still some learning. And prior to 2020, I feel, that sales and marketing both relied heavily on those face-to-face meetings and in-person events, and those were critical stages in our sales cycle and our customer journey. And as marketers, we had to quickly pivot to those virtual events and experiences and transform our approach, while being cognizant of that fatigue and overall virtual event exhaustion that we were running into. And it's hard to replace the impact of those face-to-face interactions for both salespeople and customers alike. And they love having those interactions. It wasn't just the salespeople that were missing them. We found our customers wanted to interact with us and learn more from us in those face-to-face environments. And they still have clear benefits. But for many companies, we knew that, my company that I worked with last year, having to cancel a huge customer event meant losing a significant amount of revenue. I mean, in the end of the day, we're in companies just like our customers that we have revenue we're trying to drive. And so what was the learning point? We tried to figure out as we started to pivot from our biggest customer event being physical to moving it virtual. And one of the things we quickly realized was a good learning part was not one size fits all, right? And not everything that works in the virtual world and physical world doesn't always translate well to the virtual world. And so we had some gotchas and we worked through it. I think also adding that regional component, things that we tried to do an event across multiple regions. And we realized that we actually had to break it up. We had to do one in Europe, much different than the one we did here. And just, learnings and moving forward. When we moved, again, like our annual event from physical to virtual, we found that some of those other challenges came into just individual time zones inside of the US, and how we were going to try to do a happy hour in the East when people were still working at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, in the West. So how do we account for that? One thing we did do that worked out really well was we chose a really strong virtual event vendor, and they took a physical type of appearance in their platform, and we're able to make it very interactive. So we had a lobby, we had lots of networking opportunities that were virtual, where it was very face-to-face like this, very Zoom-like. And then they also had the ability to ask speaker questions, even though some of our speaker events were pre-recorded, much like this. And then we would be in the chat and we could talk to them. But I think going into 2021, I still believe marketers are going to have to utilize virtual events. And as we move to a more hybrid approach, once the pandemic begins to lessen, I think the key is to know your target audience well. You got to get really creative and research and find the right tools to provide that engaging content. Virtual experiences are here to stay. I don't think they're going to go away, but we as marketers need to continue to combine physical and virtual strategies to engage with our customers.
Thanks, Lisa. There, again, a lot of topics there. Before we pivot, does anyone want to share more about the event side of things and changes you've needed to make over this past year? Okay, so Larisa, I want to pivot for a moment. I loved how you shared earlier on about the need to be more vulnerable and direct and open with our customers. I think that, to me, that's been an important part of being a leader, right? Is we go from this place of wanting to be kind of strong and proud, and our solution is the best, and our products are the best, right? We're really pivoting to a place where I think being more direct and more open, both as companies and as individuals, is becoming more important. Do you want to share more on that topic that you introduced earlier?
Yeah, definitely. So I think, just kind of piggybacking on the topic that you're talking about, a major shift or pivot for us within the last year has been in regards to content strategy and just corporate narrative. So of course, being in a pandemic, it's going to be a lot different marketing to your customers from a content perspective, and really writing with a higher purpose and mission. And it became kind of more clear for us that as the pandemic progressed, our customers had less time for reading our content. So it became a lot more skimmable. And there was definitely a huge shift in what type of content they were more interested in. So we started creating more checklists and guidebooks on, things like that were a little bit more business critical. So how to shift to a remote, workforce, how to, I guess, what is the other one? Something like how to have the best outcome for Zoom meetings, things that, we were in previously, I was in the cybersecurity space, like we were not ever focusing on things like that in the past. So to see that major content shift was really eye-opening, and just really focusing more on value-based messaging instead of, directing people to like that normal call to action of book a demo with us. It was more, we don't need you to book a demo. We just want you to, feel safe. We want you to feel like you have a strategic partner with us, whether you're, on the smaller end of the customer spectrum or whether you're an enterprise or strategic account. And I think really focusing more on that value and how we would be strategic partners with our customers in the long run, during the pandemic, after the pandemic, and really having different strategies for different types of customers. It might be hard to believe, but we had, a good chunk of customers that actually were doing extremely well in the pandemic. We had healthcare customers, we had virtual event customers, and they needed to scale quicker than ever before. So we had this, kind of juxtaposition of scaling certain customers at a record rate and creating that type of content. And then the opposite customers that were having to have major layoffs, that were needing to scale down their business. So yeah, it was very challenging, but being able to shift, different strategies based on different, customer needs, and really focusing on their pain points and kind of going from there while kind of maintaining our mission and our purpose as a company, was the only way that we were able to successfully pivot during the pandemic.
Yeah, Larisa, I love all those sentiments. And from the product marketing perspective, the type of positioning documents or the sales collateral or what I had to prepare for our demand gen team, customer marketing team, all kind of had to shift to be more empathetic and more outcomes based. So because we are an education technology company, we have subject matter experts and put out content on mental wellness, financial literacy, prescription drug safety. And so we were seeing, in the news, as everybody else was, all of these issues sort of coming up. And so not only were we positioning the products as a way to help mitigate some of that through education, we were also putting out just general pieces that somebody could come onto the EVERFI site, see, and give them some support during the pandemic. And that's a strategy I believe we'll continue to go forward with.
Denny, would you say that your content also changed? You saw a pivot there, or was it more in kind of the data and the support behind what you were doing with your work? Where did you have a bigger pivot?
Yeah, I would definitely, so our content definitely did change for sure. I think knowing how that content needed to change was probably the more difficult thing to figure out though. And that's where kind of the data piece came in a little bit. But yeah, we did end up changing our content quite a bit, because what we noticed early on was our customers were changing. The people that were signing up for Unbounce were changing. Customer behaviors started changing very quickly. And what we didn't want to do was what a lot of customers might have been exhibiting, which was like a little bit of a knee-jerk reaction to COVID hitting, and then trying to make decisions without necessarily having data behind those decisions. And so in a lot of cases, in many cases, actually, we had a big group of customers that were calling up and saying, hey, we need to cancel, but we don't know why we need to cancel. There's just a big pandemic in front of us right now, right? But they didn't actually know what the facts were ahead of us. And so what we did is, again, going back to like keeping that level head and trying to make decisions without necessarily that knee-jerk reaction, we took a really close look at like how were our customers changing, what were their behaviors, and how was segmentation changing as well too. We learned that we didn't necessarily have all of the data that we needed to. And so we've invested a lot since in making sure that we have better segmentation of data, especially around customer behaviors. But what we noticed was that we saw a lot more smaller businesses signing up for our company. And we service a wide array. We service right from like, one-person companies all the way up to large enterprises. But we knew that the user problems that we were going to be solving were going to be very different if we saw a shift in that segmentation, as well as like going through this change. A lot of those businesses were facing brand new problems. Like Alex mentioned, like we had customers that were closing their doors, and we needed to figure out like, hey, how can we support them and keep them their business afloat? But also we had customers that were having to figure out how to scale significantly faster than they ever did in their whole existence. And so once we realized what those shifts were in terms of the customer segmentation, so certain businesses, say like in healthcare, were thriving. Okay, well, how can we support those kind of businesses and help them scale? Whereas maybe smaller businesses, okay, how can we make sure that they can keep their doors open and they're still going to remain customers? And maybe this is just a little bit of a blip for them. And so just kind of going back to, I guess, the real theme, underlying theme, it all came down to empathy and understanding like true user problems and how you can solve those user problems in a meaningful way. But in order for us to do that, we really needed to have the data in front of us, and we needed to make decisions with data. And I would say that there's both the qualitative and quantitative. We needed to lean on both of those, right? So once we started seeing trends, we needed to actually pick up the phone and call those customers or talk to them and see like, hey, what are you going through right now? And make sure that we were adjusting, our content strategies, our onboarding strategies, based off of what they were saying and the pain points they were experiencing.
Would any of you say that your approach to data, what you understood about your strategies, did that shift? Did it change in a way that you expected or wouldn't have thought of? Or did the pandemic bring kind of a new understanding to any of your companies about your customers and how they're using your solutions?
I think for me, where I sit in the organization, I double down on really getting in front of the customer, whether that be listening to sales calls or reading notes in Salesforce or actually talking to customers directly, kind of turning that up and asking some key questions when it came to planning for future product releases or some positioning when it came to collateral that I was working on across different functions at EVERFI. So I think it heightened my awareness of just being present when it came to sourcing that qualitative side from the customer directly, as opposed to, secondhand in a sales meeting or a brainstorm or something like that.
Same with me on our side. I'm very close. I'm more on the demand gen side, and so being very close to sales. It really changed our selling motion in terms of being more strategic. We went back and looked at the buyer personas, and we really dug deep into the demographics, and where before we might be looking at what's their intent to buy, we started to change it up and create demographics around what are they dealing with today they weren't dealing with yesterday, and how do we service them in such a way that we come across as we're here to help, we're not here to sell to you. And that's, from a salesperson standpoint, that's a completely different selling motion, because, their salespeople want to get in, they want to get out, they want to help the customer, but they also have a quota to meet, right? So then kind of getting them to take a step back and realize that this is a customer for life type of a program here. And we need to figure out, how do we service our customers in such a way that what can our product do differently? How do we pivot to show them how that product does it differently? Something they already have, not trying to sell them more seats, not trying to sell them something different. And showing them how we can help them so that when this does, turn around for them, or they're not worried about, what's happening in their division or in their company right now, they can come back and say, they were really good to me during this, and they didn't just try to treat me as if I was somebody they were going to sell something to. So changing and looking at demographics differently and working with product marketing to do that was super key. And I really think it changed my focus for my role as well.
Do you feel like you were supported by your broader organizations or executives, right? When you talk about the pivot of, we know that cycles are going to take longer, we need to sell differently, we're in it for the long haul. Does anyone want to share about how you felt in the extended organization about those sorts of discussions?
Yeah, I can step in, Rebecca. I think it was a very eye-opening moment for me professionally at the company when the pandemic did start hitting, and even within the first couple of weeks, our extended leadership team was incredibly protective of our customer base, and it was very much a pivot of like, drop everything and protect the customer base. It was, if they need some sort of help in regards to like payment options, if they need, different types of, programs or different features turned on that maybe they had to pay for before, like, let's figure it out. And especially so with certain verticals, specifically in healthcare and essential businesses and education, because those were two, industries that were incredibly impacted by the pandemic. And this isn't a time to be, thinking about money or how we can expand, our services and get as much money as possible from people that are on the front lines, and they're pretty much helping the country and the world, keep together at the moment. So yeah, there was a huge shift, as kind of, other panelists have said, from trying to sell our customers or even our new business, prospects things, to how can we help? How can we, move your business forward? And we can think about, we can work together on, I guess, like the financial piece of it. Because I think that's something that was a huge shifting point in 2020. Budgets where could have been dramatically affected one way or the other. So we were able to work with them. But yeah, it was a huge effort from the leadership team. And then, of course, naturally, it kind of trickled down to the middle managers and then to individual contributors.
That's one thing I was really proud of it at my company. I mean, we work in supply chain, which of course has become a much bigger thing. More people think about it now than ever before. When you think about, suppliers and the difficulty, of transportation logistics. At my company, we actually offered our solutions and services to be able to provide materials for emergency and healthcare purposes. But the way we handled it was, we didn't talk about, we got it done. We gave the time, we gave the solutions, and still haven't even I guess this is the closest we're coming to marketing it. In fact, is me sharing today, because my CEO from the start, he said, let's do this, let's do the right thing. And it was about that. And I feel like we see that in a lot of companies. And of course, we felt that way as, as marketing leaders, as well, that we just want to, we want to do the right thing.
I'm just going to add on really quick, something that I think inspired me, personally, and I think throughout our company, is you kind of mentioned, it's almost this like unspoken bond that certain companies and certain people, you don't ask, you just do. And we had so many customers that just did. We had customers that were in manufacturing and had nothing to do with essential business, and they were donating, school books and lunches and masks and all kinds of things, and just kind of like rolling up their sleeves during this time. And it was one of those kind of like humanizing moments. But companies are still doing it, and nobody's asking them to do it. It's just kind of speaks to the authenticity of, the brand and the people that are leading these organizations.
I think there's something interesting that kind of both of you are chatting there. And I think this is especially the case under any crisis, under any pressure, and why it's so important that you really establish values and you understand your values, and you make sure that it's going within the company. Because when you're under a lot of stress and you're under a lot of pressure, that's when quick decisions need to be made. And if you don't have those values in place, then you might not be making the right decisions, I think. And like in your case, Rebecca, making sure that you're doing the right thing. That's not only beneficial, I think, obviously in the circumstances of COVID for your customers and everything like that, but it's great for your business as well too in the long term, right? And I think that without those guiding principles and allowing people to be able to make decisions that are closest to a lot of those problems, based off of those values very quickly, it can be really difficult to pivot whenever you encounter these things. And so I guess one thing that I hadn't really thought of is making sure that you have those in place before you run into anything that like this, so that way you can empower people to make decisions and do the thing that's best for your business. So
that's actually where I was going to pivot, Danny. I was going to say that some of it starts with having a culture of agility or innovation, so that when something like this comes along, you're able to take the right steps. Lisa, do you want to share?
Yeah, I think part of, just to kind of piggyback off of what Denny said, is having the right teams in place, but also empowering and trusting the teams you put in place, right? And I think as marketers, we often find ourselves in that middle ground between the pressure from sales leaders to continue to drive pipeline during the pandemic. Our own company has to stay afloat, right? I think that's the key that none of us really want to say, but we need to say. But at the same time, just ensuring that we're also being allowed to be empathetic and be able to extend that to our customers. And like, Larisa and everybody's kind of said, preserving that customer base and even people that we're prospecting to. We have to do it in a really empathetic way so that we don't come across as, hey, we're just here to, be a one and done type of company. It's not always an easy position to be in. And sometimes it's important that, sales leaders and company leaders understand that you've put people in a certain position for a reason, and you have to trust them that we're going to, help find new ways for our organization to drive revenue while we're still keeping an eye out for that exceptional customer experience.
Yeah, Lisa, I totally agree. I think one of the wonderful things that EVERFI tried to do is getting out ahead of it. We took a very aggressive approach when it came to, how we would handle COVID and the pandemic, from just shutting down our offices proactively to kind of get that going, messaging out to our customers. And then because we have a sponsorship model where teachers and students take our courses, pivoting to that and opening up resources, but then having leadership, stay ahead. We had Friday calls where we would just talk and be honest about, how things were going, keep the customer in mind, but here's some new resources that we have for both our customers, but also the employees. So that kind of cohesion gave us a cadence that then the whole team sort of could work off of. And we're still sort of in that cadence, kind of figuring out what, the next few months look like. But it was both, I think without that, internal support, our customers would never have gotten the amount of energy or support that we were able to give during this time.
I appreciate that, Alex. I think we've seen too that need for meaningful connection with our customers and within our own companies. Does anyone want to share any examples of that?
Yeah, I'm happy to share a little bit. I think when the pandemic first hit, one of the first things that we wanted to do is actually make sure that our team members were taken care of, because if we're not in a good place, then it's really hard to take care of your customers. And so Unbounce did an exceptional job of making sure that like everybody got home, they felt like they were safe, they were secure, that their jobs weren't going anywhere, and that we could do our jobs and focus on our jobs. And anybody that obviously, was struggling with anything, we gave them the time and space to be able to take care of that, right? But I think that was the first step, and they went out of their way to make sure that, as a team, we were well connected, that we were spending time with each other, that we were taking care of each other. I remember like within the first few weeks, we were already doing like our first Zoom like cooking class online and stuff like that, which was really cool to see. But also for our customers, I think it was really important to connect with them in a meaningful way. And I think we did that in a lot of different ways at Unbounce, and we tried to make it as individualized as possible. But one of the biggest challenges that we ran into, again, was like every customer was experiencing this differently. For some, it was the worst thing in the world. And for others, it was actually really great for their business, but they didn't know how to deal with the scaling issue. And so we relied a lot on our customer support teams and one-to-one teams to make sure that our customers were A, heard, and B, that they were getting the support that they needed. And in order for us to do that, we really had to empower them to be able to make decisions on the front line, day by day, kind of as things came. And so one of the things that we did is like we established like a task force on our team that was cross-functional with frontline workers, everybody that was customer facing, so that they could share information and come up with essentially the best solutions that they could for our customers. And then they could go ahead on the front lines, make those decisions. If you needed to pause your account for 3 months, great, it's done. And that's really that's quite impactful on our revenue, both negatively, but also positively. But I think it's really important that you're able to connect with customers on that one-to-one basis at that level and allow people to make decisions within your company. So that way they can actually, find the right solution. And at the end of the day, like most companies we're going to get through this, and we knew this, and that if we left them with like a solution where they felt like they'd been heard and taken care of, that we were going to have a customer for life potentially, right? So
I think that task force is a great example, Denny. And to me, it gets to the importance of gathering feedback generally. Are there any other success stories or even maybe pain points that anyone else wants to share on how do you gather that feedback from your customers, from what's going on, so that we can improve the work that we're doing on the marketing side?
Yeah, I can jump in, Rebecca. So I think there are a multitude of different ways, depending on, of course, how you structure your customer marketing, on how to successfully receive feedback from your customers, especially during, such an unpredictable and chaotic time as in a pandemic. For me personally, I've always very heavily relied on our customer success managers. They are the closest to customers. KCS. They're the closest to customers. They have, that daily or very regular cadence touch point with them. And so it only makes sense to, to depend on them for any type of feedback from customers. And just having regular meetings, usually bi-weekly or monthly with CS, for me, I've been able to just kind of identify patterns in, customer feedback and sentiment. So CS is definitely my number one. And then I would say secondary to that is if you have a customer advocacy program. So customers who are very engaged, usually are promoters of your brand, champions of the organization, they'll be much more vocal than, any other customer. And we incentivize them through our customer advocacy program to give us their honest feedback through surveys, through, activities, through emails, all kinds of different channels. So that's been a really great way as well. And, it's very funny and definitely eye-opening, as so many things have been for me this year, or within the last year, how much, a little gift can go a very long way for customers when they're stuck in their homes. And especially when you see them outside of just their professional realm. So sending gifts to customers for their dogs or their children, or, something a little bit, outside of the norm, goes a really long way, and customers will open up, a lot more than if you just send them an email.
Yeah, one of the portfolios that I work under, we have a customer council, and that's been extremely fruitful to get different customers together for a 2-hour block to just talk, see what's upcoming on the roadmap, and to get feedback. That's been a wonderful experience to just connect customers to each other, as well as give us a space to kind of work through some of the ideas that we have at EVERFI that we'd like to test, as well as some ideas customers may have that they are seeing as gaps in the market potentially. But to Larissa's point, I've received a few swag items that have to do with my dog, and it just made such an impact. I was like, just a day brightener. So I don't think you can ever go wrong with something really personalized and tailored to the person.
We've managed to blow through this panel discussion and the time that we have allowed. So I think we need to head to our last question, but I'd like to give each of you the chance to answer it. When we're thinking about what changes are here to stay, what's different now that it's 2021, what will new normal be? I'd like to take a turn with each of you to share. Why don't we go ahead and start with Larisa?
Sure. Yeah, I think, the majority of the topics that were brought up in the panel today are here to stay. Everything from virtual events to, a more empathetic and value-based messaging content strategy to, making sure that you always have a pulse on customer feedback. Those are all things that are definitely here to stay, and not just for 2021, but for the foreseeable future. I think a common theme or thread, if I had to pick something, is with that theme of humanizing and empathetic narrative. I would say that we're humans first, and then everything else. So just kind of keeping that in mind and being able to kind of lead with that in mind and with our values is going to go a really long way. And I don't foresee that ever changing. So that's short, sweet, and to the point.
Thanks, Larisa. What about you, Lisa?
I think obviously with the pandemic, it has forever changed the experience of being both a marketer and a customer. And customer experience is really, at least for me, and I think a lot of us, has taken on a new and more vital meaning against the backdrop of the pandemic. Customers are facing new challenges and new things that have come out of this. Plus, their older ones are now either shifting or they're more in the forefront of what they're doing, and their needs have changed. Right? They're more focused on essential concerns today. And I feel like organizations are starting to reinvent what is their customer experience, what does that look like, what are those those efforts need to be, and what are those primary needs. And much like all of us have said today, showing that empathy and that humanizing the brand and the care to build a stronger, more sustaining customer experience and customer relationship. And that still pivots down for me into that buyer's journey. So one thing I think that we're looking at, aside from pivoting our marketing tactics and being more flexible, is our team is very laser focused on combining and overlaying the buyer's journey with the customer journey to just ensure that we provide an exceptional experience across both prospects and customers to retain our clients while obtaining and onboarding new ones. It's a really nice way to ensure that there's that seamless experience, from beginning to end. And it's something that I can admit myself, sometimes I lose sight of, and I chunk it up, and I don't realize that it should be a seamless experience across both.
That's a great point, Lisa. Denny, over to you. What's here to stay?
Yeah, I think in a weird way, the question about like what changes are here to stay, I think change is here to stay is what it is. Like faster change all the time. For the longest time, so many companies essentially said, oh yeah, we can't support work from home. It's not possible. And 2 weeks later, every company in the world was purely supporting work from home, or at least doing their best to. And I think just looking at trends, you'll see an acceleration towards trends faster and faster and faster all the time, I think. And in order to keep up with that, I think there were kind of two things that really stood out to me, at least at Unbounce, that really empowered fast change and quick change, and us being able to support those changes, especially for our customers as well too. And that was like number one, having the data in order for us to understand what's actually happening and then make decisions about that. And then number two was empowering people to make decisions within our organization. And it really is a little bit of a shift in terms of, I think, how organizations are even structured, generally speaking, right? Like previous to the pandemic, you would have seen a lot of organizations, a lot of those decisions are made top down. And now you've got to restructure your organization if you want to stay relevant to be really bottom up. And I think ultimately, like, the biggest change is going to be that we need to keep up with change at the end of the day. I'm excited about that in many ways. I think it will bring a lot of positive change within organizations, and it'll make workplace actually a better place to work. So and better for our customers as well too.
Alex, it's not going to be easy to close it up after so many great points from the others, but if you would, please.
Sure. I think the thing that's here to stay is recognizing that the customer needs to be central to the business decisions that are being made. I think many maybe thought that their customer was central, and then when the pandemic hit, realized maybe perhaps there was business decisions being made in a vacuum or without the customer in mind, and that's businesses that have been able to pivot are seeing, reaping the benefits of that. And those that aren't are maybe struggling to find their voice in the market or their voice with connecting to customers when it comes to renewal time or upsells or whatever it may be. So just refocusing around the customer, making data-driven decisions, which Denny, I love that you mentioned, and keeping an empathetic mindset, the human first advice that Larisa gave, I think is so spot on from now and until forever, really.
Thanks everyone for your time. This has been a great session. Again, I'm just surprised that the time went by as quickly as it did, but looking forward to connecting with everyone in the chat and in the ongoing discussions with the community. Thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rebecca. Thanks, everyone.
Rebecca.
Whether you're joining a Product Marketing Alliance event for the first time, or if you're a seasoned regular, welcome to the first ever Customer Marketing Summit. Before we set the ball rolling on the next session, we just want to say a huge thank you to our sponsors, partners, speakers, and you, our lovely audience. From wherever in the world you are watching, we're sure you will enjoy the sessions from our incredible lineup. With expert presentations, specialist talks, and deep dive panel sessions on the agenda, you are in for a real treat today. To get the most out of these sessions, please ensure you are sharing your feedback and asking all your questions in the comments section, and our speakers will be answering them throughout. After the event, a great place to continue the conversation is in the customer marketing channel in the PMA Slack community. If you aren't already a member, hop on over. In addition to the jam-packed lineup, we were delighted to announce the winner of the Customer Marketing Excellence Award a little earlier today. Missed it? Well, don't worry, because we have given the winner and the runners-up a shout-out in the Customer Marketing channel on Slack. Be sure to head on over and share your congratulations. We had a great time reviewing all your fantastic nominations. Thanks for taking the time to share them with us. But now, it's time for the next talk.
Thank you so much for joining our session. We're really excited to have you here. We're going to be talking about turning loyal customers into raving champions today. So my name is Jeni Asaba. I oversee community engagement and advocacy at a technology company that's based out of Minneapolis, Minnesota. I am incredibly excited to be here with Jen. Jen, would you like to introduce yourself to everyone?
Thank you, Jeni. I'm Jen Susinski, and I manage the Global Customer Experience and Advocacy Program at HPE. Really chuffed to be a part of this session. I'd like to first kick off our fireside chat with getting your thoughts, Jeni, around customer advocacy versus customer marketing. Do you think they're one and the same, or are they two different buckets?
Yeah, I love this topic. So Jen, as you know, this comes up a lot in conversations around advocacy programs. And what I encourage people to ask themselves when they think about this is, number one, can you have one without the other? So can you have customer advocacy without customer marketing and vice versa? And does that matter? For instance, I wholeheartedly believe that customer marketing is a natural byproduct of any successful customer advocacy program, but the reverse is not always, if ever, true, in my opinion. So this goes back to the idea that people do not like being sold to. They don't like being marketed to. Jen, I doubt you do. I'm not a big fan of being marketed to. But if you treat customers really, really well, show them that you support them first and foremost through a well-rounded advocacy program, I believe they're going to get what they want out of the program and then want to help you with all of your additional efforts, which naturally creates all of those customer marketing opportunities. What do you think about that, Jen? Do you agree, disagree?
I 100% agree. I, from the get-go, knew that if I built a program that pretty much 100% gave back to my customers, I would always be able to fill marketing requests. When you provide value to them and you are a strategic part of their success, there are always going to be customers that are willing to do stuff on your behalf. But if you take it the flip side and you lead with asking and then trickle down things that you can give them further down the funnel, that scenario doesn't always work.
Yeah, and I think too, we both experienced that not everyone necessarily believes that's true. The customer marketing side, I think, is where people tend to naturally lead, because you can say like, I need this for the company in order for, you know, us to succeed or what have you. But we've seen through our experience, right? And I know a lot about your story and your successes with your program, that just like you said, you flip it on its side. And that just comes because people want to help when they know that you are first and foremost there to help them.
I think another misconception is that the customers always want to speak on our behalf. So I think it's important for us as community leaders is to really identify where they're comfortable. Are they comfortable speaking at events? Are they comfortable speaking on webinars? Are they comfortable speaking to prospects? So knowing that information also helps us identify where we can safely place them in customer marketing asks.
Yeah, no, that's a really, really good point. Is if you're doing your job really well as a community leader, then you recognize which of those customers want to partake in different activities, just like people have different personas and personalities. Like we want to engage in different ways too. So I think that's just an awesome point. Jen, I'm going to bring up the next topic here. So like, as we know, all stellar community leaders know just how important it is to create that customer first space. But I don't get the sense that everyone knows how to do this. So would you mind sharing some of your tips and tricks and feedback about what you've done to achieve success in creating this customer first mentality?
Yeah, so I think it's both from a program perspective and a personal perspective. So from a program perspective, I think defining key pillars are really important, such are what are the goals that you want to give back to your customers? What are the goals that you need to hit internally? And then what are the goals that you need to have with all of your stakeholders? Internal buy-in is essential across the board. Every single business unit, I feel every group needs a hand in the pot, whether it's engineering, support, product management, product marketing, customer experience. If everybody is not on board, it's further roadblocks for the community to thrive. But more so, I really feel like before you get to any of that, you need to define your personal pillars. So for me personally, it was to dream big. I still dream big. I always want to be confident when I'm pitching this program, whether it's internally to somebody who's heard it 10 times before or somebody new. Always being firm on the vision of where I want to go. And that's going to change over time as my program grows. I always want to be bold. I'm courageous. I take risks. You have to take risks if you want your community to grow. It's just a given. On the flip side to that, I'm not afraid to make tough decisions. Making tough decisions sometimes is the best thing for your community. Own it. I'm accountable for everything that touches my community. I can't pass the buck. I'm the community lead. Work as a team. Collaborate with anybody and everybody that wants to touch your group. If they can bring value to your customers, find a way to collaborate with them. Do the right thing. I always try to conduct myself with honesty and integrity with every single customer and every single interaction. It's not always easy. Sometimes I want to tell them more than I can, but just leading with being as transparent as you possibly can just earns their respect on a level that is absolutely stellar. Show everybody that's part of your program respect. You might not always agree with what they're going to say, but take that step back and lead with what's right for your customers. Lastly, I think just loving what you do. This is such a great space. I have a marketing ops background and didn't think that I was going to thrive in this space. And I honestly love what I do every single day. Even when I get a call from a customer who has a support issue and it's 11 o'clock on a Friday night, my computer is on within 5 minutes because I've built these relationships, and it's just it's a great space to work in. Having well-defined pillars also allows me to be a human. The human aspect of these communities is so important. I would actually stake my job on it that robotic communities do not thrive. The human element of this is really important, which brings me to an extremely important aspect of communities. What does it mean to you, Jeni, to give your customers a seat at your table?
Ooh, I love this topic because this really gets to the heart of just any customer advocacy program. And that's, giving customers more opportunities to connect with each other and your organization in strategic and really meaningful ways. And like you said, Jen, being human at the center and as your foundation throughout all of it is extremely important. And I can get into that in a little bit. But for me, this seat at the table concept, it really means listening, which is not rocket science, right? But in order to do it well, you have to be willing to put your ear to the ground, actually hear what your customers want and need. And sometimes those don't align with what's on your roadmap. I think we've both experienced that because our product at the end of the day is not, what our teams are developing. It's not a software solution, it's people. So we need to recognize that their needs, their wants are changing constantly, and we need to listen. So for instance, and then I swear I'll answer more of the question with some examples, but one thing that I learned a lot over this last year during this pandemic was I had a whole plan for what my advocacy program is going to do, right? Like, we're strategists too. We plan out what's going to happen. And then pandemic hits, people are in really hard spaces. And I just started really listening. Again, put my ear to the ground and said, like, hey, customers in my program, what do you need? And it turned out all they wanted at that point was more connection. They're just like, I'm home by myself throughout all of this. I'm not interacting with people like normal. Some people it's easier. Some people it's much more difficult. But as a whole, my customers globally just asked for more connection. So we pivoted and started virtual meetups, where now still to this day, we meet twice a month for 1 hour each time, once in the morning, once in the afternoon. And we routinely get anywhere from 50 to 60 customers on those calls from, I think the last count was 11 different countries. And people are developing friendships with each other. And that's my goal, is like, hey, if you all can be in the first physical space together, having never met before in person, and you feel like you have friends in that room, then I've succeeded, right? So that was one example where I just like really, really listened and did something super easy to pivot and to recognize the wants and needs of the customers. But again, that's more of a drastic example there. So a couple other ways giving people a seat at the table is just asking for the routine feedback, right? So this can be about anything, can be about your program, your organization's products or services, but you need to actually, again, listen and show your customers that they're heard. So involve customers in focus groups, beta testing, a customer advisory board, help them write blogs for your organization's website so that their voices are amplified. And my background's in journalism, so this is a piece that I absolutely love, is like, how do we take the great ideas and experiences that our customers have and just amplify those within the organization, and then share the customer's ideas and sentiments throughout the organization. So I do this a lot where I hear something great in my program, it could be something great that they've done, or it could be a customer's feedback on our support team, because our support team is absolutely outstanding. And I share those in various ways, whether it's an all company meeting, it's in the Slack channel. Like, people at Jamf would probably say, yep, we know what Jeni is up to because she maybe overshares, but I want people to know what's going on with customers, because that helps us recognize our customer base, understand their wants and their needs, and then pivot as needed as a company. So I think there's just so many different ways that we can give them seats at the table. And Jen, I know you've done some super interesting things in this area, so I'd love if you could share some of your tips here.
Yeah, so 100% agree. Focus groups and betas, those are the things that the customers love being a part of, because it really solidifies the fact that they have a seat at the table. When they're part of a focus group and beta and they see feature enhancements come into play that they've actually talked about, they know that we're listening, and that is very much key. You actually have to listen to your customers, because if you listen but you don't hear them, they will stop talking. And that is detrimental to any product. Another thing that I did that I was actually surprised at the response I got, just because it happened during the pandemic. At the beginning of it, we have a lot of customers that are mission critical customers. And I worked with the lead of support and basically provided a list that just listed out our top mission critical customers, gave it over, and if they were to call support, they would have went right to the head of the queue. After I sorted this internally, I emailed each customer to let them know that this was going to be the protocol with them, and they were so blown away that we did that. Even if they never had to use it, they were so chuffed and felt so special that it was just something that I could give back to them so that they knew how valued they were to us. Also getting them involved in the sales cycle. I know that it sounds silly, and I'm not talking about reference calls. I'm talking about having your customers educate your sales teams about what they need to hear when you approach them. It will help your internal sales teams sell better. That's something that we started doing last year, and we saw a lot of success with it. And the customers actually laughed at me when I went to them with this idea, but they really enjoyed it because they were seeing they would see the different side of the house when they would meet with the sales teams, when they sat in a room and heard how they're learned or they're taught to sell the product. So that was a really great experience for both the sales reps and the customers that took part in that exercise. Which brings us to our next segment, tips and tricks for success. There are so many tips and tricks that we could share with you guys, but we're going to give you a handful of our top ones. So Jeni, why don't you take that one away?
Yeah, tips and tricks for success. So I think that, number one, like you said, you need to listen, you need to be vulnerable. Vulnerability as a community manager can be one of the scariest things because people are like, what the heck do you mean by that? And I mean, to the point, I'm going to give this example. Jen, I don't know if you've heard of this. I know you haven't seen it, but there was one time where we were on I think it was a virtual meetup, and customers were just sharing, they were just having a rough time, right? They were just down and out, like the world is crashing around us, right? That might be a bit extreme, maybe not, but there's a lot going on. And I think I internalized that a little bit, because that night I had just an awful nightmare. And if anybody watching has the nightmares where it's like a movie in your head, you see all the details, you feel everything, and you wake up and you're just kind of like, I didn't enjoy that. That wasn't pleasant. Let's get that out of my head. So what I did was I came down to, my office space here in the basement, and I sat down with my computer and I recorded a little message just on a little Zoom meeting like this. And I just spoke to my customers from my heart. And I'm like, y'all, I just woke up from an awful nightmare. And I think it's because the world is crazy. We're all going through so much, and we're just having a hard time with it. So if this is any bit of help, or I don't know, enjoyment to you all, I'm going to deliver something to you that makes me feel better. And I sat and a cappella, I just sang Lean on Me, and I sang a couple of verses, and I did one take right there, very raw, shaky voice and everything. And I put it out to them, and the messages that I got back, and this was I don't sing in front of people a lot. So the messages that I got back were just that is exactly what I needed, just to hear that somebody's going through the same thing. The fact that you were raw and took time to do that and thought of us, those little gestures, we can do them so easily, but I think we forget about them because, like you said, we think about how do we get the biggest impact out to people. And a lot of times it's just through the machine learning, or it's through these other areas that take away that human aspect, and people want more of the human side. So that's not a list of tips and tricks I could provide around being that human person on the other end. It's just kind of digging deep and saying, what do I appreciate when people do this for me? Do they send me a handwritten card every now and then to say thank you? Do they send me recognition when I had a new baby? I do that for my customers, send out, secretly find out what the baby's name is and send them out something. Is it just recognizing them in front of the company and then letting them know that I recognized an achievement they had in their area in front of the company? Those are all things that put together really help us achieve success in our programs. And Jen, I know that you fully believe in this humanistic side of it too. And that's, it's that relationship building piece. If nothing else, if people truly focus on building a genuine relationship, want to know their customers, want to help their customers, I think that's where they're going to achieve success.
Totally agree.
Yeah. So
go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I'm sure you've got a list of maybe more well-defined tips and tricks on there. So if you could share
tips and tricks, but definitely areas of interest. I think personalizing everywhere and anywhere that you can is really great.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it means sending 50 emails as opposed to one email, that personalization where you speak directly to that one customer, that could be the difference between success and failure.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't just mean for that ask, I mean for, them engaging with you overall. Another area is empathizing with your customer. If they need you and they're actually reaching out, there's probably a reason for that. So take a step back, no matter how busy you are, and put yourself in your customer's shoes. Whatever you have to do, get them into the right swim lane. They will be forever thankful to you, and they will acknowledge that you went above and beyond for them. Be creative with them. Think outside the box. Don't do the same thing over and over again. They get excited when they know they're my guinea pig, but you're doing something fun with them. You're taking the mundane task of doing something on our behalf and putting some spice into it. Again, we talked about being human. Be human whenever you can be human. It will breathe a new life into your program. And lastly, have fun. there is a post that I did. I don't even like mentioning when I did it because I think I did it at the end of 2018. And it is the most active discussion in my discussion board still. And all it was take a movie and replace one of the words with bacon. Now, I come from a big tech company, so the fact that that's my that's the most popular discussion post across the board for the entire company and our community. We laugh every time on the back end it pops up to the top of our funnel again. And I think it's just have fun. And there are people that posted on this and when I first did it, and when somebody comes in and does a movie that they didn't think of, it just starts the whole chain up again. So don't be afraid to have fun. At the end of the day, your customers want to have fun as well. So you might as well have fun with them so that they don't go somewhere else. Which brings us to our last segment, but it's a great one. Jeni, if you could offer one piece of advice to a person coming into this space or a company that wants to start an advocacy community, what would it be?
Yeah, I love that. Maybe oversimplify, but it's honestly just to do it, to start. So, but I'm going to say, in my opinion, don't just create that customer marketing program. So create a customer advocacy program. Think well-rounded. Think, what can I give to help my customers achieve success in their areas? And recognize that all of your customers have different personas, different personalities. They're going to get different things. I think in one way we've got the hardest job in the world because we have to account for every personality, right? Like this person's going to like this thing, but this person's going to like this thing. How do I engage all of them? And like you said, Jen, like you have to have fun, because if your heart's not in it, if you're not passionate about what you're doing, guess who's going to understand that and who's going to see it? Like everybody on the other side, right? Like, yeah, why would I want to engage in your program if you're not enjoying it? Like, right? So you have to make it fun for them, for yourself, and derive that really strong value for your customers, because then that will always come back and give you all of the success that you're looking for your company. I think, Jen, you kind of hit on my other points there of just like, you need to remember to be human. You need to remember to have fun. You need to remember to just like overall engage and listen. And it's just, yeah, like just start somewhere. I also get this question a lot from people where they're like, I don't know where to start, or I'm not sure what to do. And it's like, you just have to start somewhere. Start and listen and pivot as needed. So as I said, like our product is people. So if you start and you kind of go in recognizing that you're going to need a little forgiveness along the way, and be upfront about it. I tell my customers, I don't know if this crazy idea that I had last night is going to work, but I'm going to try, and I want your feedback. And they're going to give me the feedback, right? Because they want to succeed with it too. And they want the program to get better. So that's something that I routinely do, crazy ideas or not, like just pivoting, listening, and constantly being willing to try something new. Like I loved what you said about like kind of being fearless, going outside the box, like, all of those are incredibly important to move a program forward, and listen to other people. Like Jen, I learned so much from you every time we talk, and from other, there are just incredible program managers that are out there and that want to connect with each other and really learn. So there's so many resources that we can learn from. But yeah, that's my number one thing, is just start, and then you can go and grow from there. But Jen, what do you agree with me? What do you think here?
I do agree with you. I think, I think there's a lot of pressure put on these groups because they're externally facing. But I think anybody that's a community manager or somebody that oversees where the program sits in the company, really, you have to not be afraid to be innovative. Not be afraid to go against the grain, do something that you've never done before. They appreciate it. Customers appreciate it. really making sure that you have complete internal buy-in before you start a program. I do think that that's pretty critical. You get one shot to make a good first impression with a community. And if you go into it too soon and you don't have the buy-in that you need to actually bring value to your customers, that could be really hard to come back from. Outside of that, I think bottom line is you have to be willing to be an advocate for your advocates, no matter what the situation is. Sometimes I personally feel that others in the company don't understand that point of view. So making sure that the people that support you understand that, that's another key thing. If I was to start something from scratch, I would really educate internal people about why that is so important. And it's the educating of internal stakeholders never ends.
No.
So it never ends. But it's just really important to know your pillars, like we spoke about in the beginning. They can adjust, but your key pillars will always be fundamental to your program.
Yeah, I love that. Jen, it has been awesome talking to you. I hope everybody watching has learned a thing or two from us, I hope. And we're just, I think, I speak on behalf of you too, Jen, that we're just really excited for anybody in this space, because it is such an exciting area to be in and to help develop and just to give your customers those opportunities to engage with your company that they haven't had before, if you haven't had a customer advocacy program. So it's really exciting. We're super excited to be able to bring these topics to you, and we're just super grateful that you tuned in and gave us some of your time today. So yeah,
I hope we inspired some people.
I hope so. So Jen, hopefully we'll see each other again real soon, and everybody else, best of luck with everything. You're going to be great. Take care.
Good luck, guys.
Bye.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the Customer Marketing Summit. Thank you for joining us. Just before we dive into the next session, I want to let you know about a very special launch that is happening today. We are delighted to announce the launch of our next exclusive certification, teaching you everything you need to know about customer advisory boards. We have partnered with the wonderful Bree Bunzel, the global head of customer marketing at Dropbox, who will host this course. If you caught Bree's presentation earlier today, you will know that she has a wealth of experience to share. In this certification, Bree will outline what it takes to build a world-class customer advisory board, with her insights serving as the perfect platform to help you establish a customer-first mindset. She will also lift the lid on how CABs highlight how customers are using your products, how to secure buy-in from key stakeholders, and much, much more. I'm also delighted to share an exclusive discount with you all today. If you register within the next 48 hours, use the code CMS2021 for a handy 10% off. But be quick, this code will expire at 6 p.m. Pacific time on Friday. And now, on to the next talk. Hello everyone, thanks for joining us. I hope you're enjoying the Customer Marketing Summit. It gives me great pleasure to hand the stage over to Eric Keating from Appcues. So over to you, Eric.
Thanks, Rose, appreciate it. Welcome everybody. Like Rose said, my name is Eric Keating, and I'm here to talk about product adoption. both how to use it to create organizational alignment and focus, and how effective that can be at getting ahead of churn and boosting revenue. For those of you who don't know me, I head up marketing at Appcues. Just quickly, for some context, Appcues makes it easy to measure and improve product adoption without a developer. That being said, I promise this is not going to be a sales pitch. Our users are largely non-technical, and they're using Appcues to both track product usage and publish highly effective in-app onboarding tours, announcements, surveys, all in a matter of minutes. As for me, I spent the last 15 years or so in SaaS, marketing, growth, GM type positions. And for the last 2 years, I've been at Appcues, where I'm helping SaaS businesses solve product-led problems. And we're also using a product-led strategy ourselves. So I'm very immersed in that world. And at Appcues, my team owns both customer acquisition as well as self-serve customer expansion and retention. And that's a pretty big part of our customer base. So just a little bit about what I'm focused on and why you should even listen to me. So we can all imagine how this would be if we were in person, right? Probably some screaming and crowd surfing and everybody just completely jacked up about product adoption. At least I can see that, right? But of course, we're not in person. So just highly encourage you to channel this dude on the right, his energy. He is really jacked up about product adoption. Ask questions, chat with your peers. I know Rose is going to jump back in at the end to field some of those questions to me. And if we all do our parts, I think we'll learn something and hopefully enjoy ourselves as well. So quickly, the agenda, what we'll cover. I don't think there are going to be any surprises here, but we'll talk about what product adoption is and why it's important, measuring product adoption with a product adoption score, and then using PAS or product adoption score to create alignment and generate results. So first, I want to talk about product adoption. What is it? Why it's important? So really, what product adoption is it's the process of new users learning about, choosing and using your product more deeply, more frequently over time. Ultimately, it's really about maximizing the value that your product delivers to your customers, right? I'm going to unpack that quite a bit today, but first, let me tell you about why it's so important. So to start, every successful product adoption is an early indicator of retention. Every company I've worked at has had a retention or churn target, and we've always paid a ton of attention to it. I'm sure that's true for most of everybody on the line. But you can probably relate to hearing something along these lines, right? Like, oh shit, this customer comes up for renewal in 90 days. We've got to jump on this. We got to make sure they stick around. The problem is, churn and renewal is the last thing that happens. It's an outcome. So, while you may be able to save an at-risk customer with 90 days of intense focus and everybody jumping in, it's not a sustainable or scalable approach. And I'm sure, we'd all like to avoid that, right? And successful product adoption also drives expansion revenue. I can't imagine, like, everybody in the audience must be thinking more about net retention today than they ever have, right? Upgrade and expansion revenue are so important. And, similarly to the retention side, you've probably heard something like, we need to boost expansion revenue this month, right? We're behind. Let's run a campaign. We'll try to sell this add-on to as many customers as we can. Again, it's just totally reactive, unscalable, often requires a ton of work, pulling data, manual outreach, et cetera. And there's a lot working against us with those churn and retention targets. I'm sure you're all sick of seeing this, but just for dramatic effect, I'll look at the latest MarTech 5000, which I think is actually 8,000 in the most recent version. This is just marketing technology, right? There's just more competition than ever. And the cost of switching to a new vendor is lower than it's ever been. And we're seeing that across the board, right? Like, look at these 8-week retention stats. I think these came from a mixed panel report. Average retention rates are super low. And for many of us, they're declining, right? And then in addition to that, make matters worse, buyer preferences are evolving, right? You get higher standards for product experiences. There's more consumer-like expectations, strong preference for self-service. And those preferences are driving shifts in go-to-market strategies, right? Think about how much the role of digital products has changed. This, obviously, I think we've all moved on from the funnel, but just to communicate this point, I'm using a funnel. In the old ways, you've got this whole process before users started using your product. Now it's way more common for people to be starting a trial using your product, or maybe it's a freemium version of your product, before they decide to buy, without having talked to anybody at your organization. So you can kind of, if you look at it this way, it's pretty easy to see just how much more important it is to show the value of your product quickly and ensure users are adopting it early on, right? And so all that being said, yeah, I'm here to tell you that aligning on product adoption is the best way to get ahead of churn and boost revenue. It's not the only way, and it shouldn't be the only way, but it is very effective, and I think it's one of the most effective ways to do it, right? You've got users who are more invested in your product more ingrained in their day-to-day. That's not only going to help maximize the value you're delivering, it's also going to create happier and more satisfied customers, right? And it's going to be a lot easier to justify the renewal when it comes to that time. In addition to that, it's going to be more difficult to switch to another product, right? If you're improving product adoption, users are going to be more receptive to expanding, and if you've got product packaging and pricing set up the right way, more likely to run into paywalls, which is going to create more revenue opportunities. So, this is the point I want you to take away from today, and I'm going to tell you about how to do this over the next few slides. Before we do, just to make clear, product adoption is not a goal that you can achieve, right? Your product's always changing, introducing new features, maybe you're refreshing your UI, your customers' needs are evolving. So it's not something you can like check the box and say it's done, but it can be observed, measured, and improved. And that is what we're going to talk about now, the product adoption score. So product adoption score, it's a metric used to understand and measure customers' adoption of your product relative to kind of the ideal state. Before I go on and tell you more, you may have heard of a customer health score. I'm sure some of you are using that. They're not the same. I'm not advocating for using one over the other. Just customer health score usually takes into consideration more qualitative data about the business, right? Each of your customers' businesses, like has a champion recently left the organization or something like that. And while that can be great to inform actions for customer success or sales, there's usually not a whole lot that like marketing or the company at large can do with that information. So PAST really focuses on hard numbers and very clear actions that you can take. So let's talk about like how a product adoption score breaks down and how you can create one. So the key is going to be identifying behaviors and usage patterns that correlate with retention. Right. So kind of 4 steps here, and I'll talk a little bit about how to simplify this. But first, you want to start by identifying your best retained customers. Right. Don't rely on contract value or case studies or even NPS here. You want to look at retention rates. So which customers have retained best? We started, when we did this, we started looking at the correlation between NPS and retention and found that there was very little, if any, which was really interesting. So just something to note there, right? Once you've identified that group, take note of the behaviors and usage patterns that they have in common, right? Like which features are they using? How often are they logging in? There's all sorts of ways you can look at it, but you want to figure out what those very well-retained customers have in common. Once you've done that, you want to check for and remove bias, right? Survivorship bias is going to be common here. So you want to compare whatever patterns you identify against other current and churn customers. Do maybe a regression analysis. And by the way, we had our business intelligence and ops teams helping with this, right? This wasn't something we did in the silo. This is often a company-wide initiative. And then lastly, hone in on the strongest correlations and use that to design your scoring model, right? So you're going to want to figure out, like, it may be that the best retained customers are using XYZ features, but that everybody else is using XYZ features too. So there's not actually a unique correlation with retention. So through checking for bias, you want to just find out that, and then each of these behaviors and patterns will have different strengths of correlation, right? So There'll be kind of some weighting you'll apply to each of the levers. And I'm going to break this down and make it a little easier to digest over the next couple of slides. But before I do that, just some common challenges. You may be thinking right out of the gate, like, oh man, I don't have enough data, not enough sample size. Maybe you've got a small customer base or you're new to market. You might be serving kind of a wide variety of unique users. Maybe you have 10 different personas who are all using your product in pretty unique ways. That can make it more challenging. Maybe you have limited availability or access to product usage data. Your data's a mess. It's also, it requires some ongoing maintenance, so there's some resource challenges. But if you're feeling like you're going to run into any of those challenges, start by making a few assumptions. It's okay to do that, as long as you do your best to validate those assumptions up front, and then again and again over time. So personally, I've always found examples really helpful when trying to understand new concepts. So I'll tell you a little bit about how we did this at Appcues. So first, like I said, we identified those behaviors and usage patterns that would drive our product adoption score. And then we decided to start with a pretty simple binary plus weights approach to our model. 2 examples. So we found that Appcues customers who were showing over a certain percentage of their users content in app stuck around longer, right? So I know what that percentage is. It's just proprietary, so I'm not saying it, but if customers showed Appcues content to over X% of their users, we knew that they were more likely to stick around. Another was NPS surveys. We found that customers who used NPS to field use Appcues to field in-app NPS surveys retain better. And that was true regardless of how many users the customers had. So in both of these scenarios, we just went with binary. If they're over X% utilization, 1. If under, 0. Are they showing NPS surveys with Appcues? Yes, 1. No, 0. From there, once we nailed the levers and the initial binary scoring, we knew we needed to apply some different weights, like I said. And those were based on how strongly and uniquely each one of these correlated with retention. So as you can see, you got the yes, no binary column, and then a coefficient column for weighting, which then produces each piece of the total score and ultimately adds up to the total score. We tried a few different versions of this up front, found one that worked best. We've iterated on it a few times, but this was an early version. And then once we did that, we exposed it to the company and worked it into our OGSM, which is very similar to OKRs for those of you who don't know it. So that's kind of the science of it. This is probably the most interesting part for those of you in customer marketing, product marketing roles. How do you actually put this into action? So you've got this total product adoption score, right? That's really helpful, but the magic isn't in the total score itself. It's in the inputs. And I like to describe the inputs. So just thinking back to this, the inputs on the left here, right? I like to describe those inputs as a bit of a roadmap for improving retention and expansion. So I had it on the next slide. Here we go. So, you've got, so just to revisit this, right? You've got each of these inputs on the left. You can kind of think of it as a bit of a checklist. Like you want to get every customer into the one scenario in the yes, no column, right? That's kind of the ideal. So these are the behaviors that you want to drive, right? And once you know that, you can start to think about what kind of action that can drive inside of the organization, right? So each team focuses on these components of the product adoption score. You can create some real alignment, right? So they can inform customer success priorities and strategy, the content of your customer nurture programs, the cadence at which you're communicating with customers, the features you spotlight inside of your product, the content you produce, even how you price and package your product. There's so much that you can use this for. And again, to provide some real world examples here, how we use it, right? So first, we used it to create alignment, provided visibility to the entire company. Like I said, we included it in our OGSM. We review product adoption score weekly with our management team and every month at our company-wide meetings, right? So it's something that we measure. Our CEO also sends out weekly emails on Monday nights, and that includes our past progress as well. And then driving action, the most important part, we added usage-based dynamic content to our regular customer emails. So for example, we have a weekly email that goes out that talks about, that provides visibility into the usage or your company's usage of Appcues. In that email, we have a spot that is dynamic, has kind of an ad in it. And depending on which of these features or behaviors or usage patterns you've exhibited, we will show you maybe one that you haven't checked off, right? So the logic is something like, if this customer hasn't shown NPS to their user base, put an NPS ad in here, right? That's a pretty basic example, but it's really driven some great behaviors from our customers. We overhauled our customer nurture email program, right? So in that, we are highlighting either information or specific features that are going to encourage customers to take action on these past inputs. We prioritized our in-app nudges and guides for key features, right? So just going back to the NPS example, if somebody hadn't used NPS, we now have inside of our app an announcement, or actually it's a tooltip on NPS that says, hey, NPS is a great way to do X, Y, and Z. Check it out. And we're driving people to actually use NPS. And we'll do that for all the features that we've identified as key inputs into pass. We even relaunched a feature. There was a feature that our customers were using, our best retained customers were using, that most of our customers weren't because we hadn't marketed it all that well. So we decided to rename it and essentially relaunch it. And that improved adoption of that feature quite a bit, which also drove up our pass score. We launched a net new feature that made it a lot easier to do something that used to be hard, but we knew it correlated with the score. And we also decided to make one of our key features that was part of the score available to all plans versus gating it, which is something we used to do. So like I said, you can drive a lot of action based on the inputs of a pass score. And if you look at the pass score overall, you want to see that trending up, of course. But again, I think the most value is in this kind of retention and expansion roadmap that the inputs create. And then results. So, what would a pseudo case study be without talking about results? So while we've improved average product adoption score quite a bit, that wouldn't really matter if we didn't see impact on retention, right? So that's what I'm highlighting here. Logo churn, blue, net retention, red. I made this pretty vague just because there's a lot of proprietary information, but this is over 5 quarters, what we saw from logo churn and net retention once we started focusing on pass and allowing it to drive the actions across the organization. As you can see, retention is stronger than ever, both by count and by revenue. And we're really excited about that and looking forward to revising the score, continuing to iterate on the score, and taking some more actions that improve these numbers even more. So with that, I'm going to invite Rose back on stage to see if any questions popped up. Do my best to answer all of them.
Absolutely. Thanks so much. That was such a great session. So we've got a couple of questions here. So first of all, Ikram is asking, is the pass score calculated per customer?
Yep. So we have, every customer has a pass score. Like I said, like I showed in that little Excel screenshot, we know all of that for every customer individually. And then we also know pass for our entire customer base, pass for our CS managed accounts versus self-serve accounts, pass by segment. I mean, we can break it down as many ways as we want. When we started, just quickly add something. When we started, we had a basic version for every customer. And over time, we've started to create slight modifications for different segments of customers based on what's best for their unique needs.
Yeah, totally makes sense. So everyone has their own kind of score, and then you can kind of cross-evaluate depending on what you're looking for, what feature you might be ruling it against.
Exactly.
Great. So Heather is asking, do you have any tips for securing stakeholder buy-in for a project like setting up a pass?
Yeah. So the biggest driver for us, I'll just speak from my personal experience. The biggest driver for us was we we were trying to improve retention and expansion, and we were very much in the scenario I showed earlier, right? Where we were like, okay, this customer comes up for renewal soon. We've got a ton of month-to-month customers, but we have some on annual contracts. But regardless, right, we're like, okay, this customer comes up for renewal in 60, 90 days. What can we do to get them in better shape? And it was just so frustrating to be having those conversations. It's not unique to Appcues. I've had these conversations everywhere, right? And I'm sure a lot of you all have as well. But we knew that it wasn't about the last 60, 90 days. It was really much more about the first like 3 to 6 months and what that experience was like. And so we were like, okay, well, what can we do in the first 3 to 6 months to improve retention? And we didn't have a clear answer, right? And so once we started to go down this path, we had a lot clearer of an answer. So I think if your company is in this position where you're trying to save accounts versus being really proactive up front and being scientific about how you get them to a state of happiness and high likelihood to retain, I think if you can just kind of pitch it that way, we're going to have a roadmap of what to do in the first 3, 6, 9 months to avoid getting into these situations where we have to save accounts all the time. I think that's kind of the best motivator. If that's true and you can highlight that problem, that's a good place to start.
Absolutely. So next question is from Meredith, and she's asking, how many iterations on your pass score have you gone through / how many do you expect to go through?
So I don't know if it's not specific iterations. We review, so our management team gets together quarterly. We do quarterly business reviews, and we discuss it every quarter. There have been quarters where we haven't made changes, and there have been quarters where we have. Sometimes we even make slight tweaks in the middle of a quarter. So it's not really like specific number of iterations, but I would say as long as your product continues to evolve and as long as your customer base continues to evolve, there should be no limit on the iterations, right? It should always be, if you're going to use this score and the components of the score to measure your company's progress and you drive action across the organization, you have to continually validate and improve the way you're measuring it.
Yeah, absolutely. So Tanvi is asking, when you say you review the pass score on a weekly basis, scrolling back up. So when you say you review the score on a weekly basis, isn't there a lag in metric extracted and customer reaction? Would it be better to review such a metric per month?
Yeah. So when I say weekly, we're not doing deep dives on it on a weekly basis, right? That seems like a little overboard. But we have an executive dashboard that we've set up in Looker. It includes everything from leads and pipeline to churn targets, et cetera, right? Like everything, mean time to resolution for engineering. It's an executive dashboard, but pass is at the top of it. We scroll through it. If anything catches our eye, I think we have the beach test, which is like, all right, if you were on vacation on a beach and you saw this in the dashboard, you would get up and call somebody. Like that's the test. So on a weekly basis, we're looking at it, we're scrolling through, and we're only really discussing it in detail if something catches our eye or something's concerning. On a monthly basis, we go a little bit deeper. On a quarterly basis, we go deep.
Yeah, totally makes sense. So we are almost at time, but there's a couple more that hopefully we can whistle through. So Katerina is asking, how can pass be used specifically for upsell improvement?
Yeah, well, so specifically for upsell, I think what we've seen is by driving increased adoption of our product in general and by pricing and packaging the right way, right? So if you've got upsells, I'm sure you've got higher tiers of your product or at least add-ons you can sell. As you're driving increased adoption, that puts customers into a state of, hey, I'm using this product more and more. I want to get more and more value out of it. So it's kind of a mental shift. But one of the things that I called out on that last slide was we saw that one of these features that correlated really highly with retention was only available to customers that were paying us more. And that can be a good thing, but it's we decided instead to make it available to all customers to improve retention across the board. And we'd focus on other features to drive upsells. I know that wasn't a super direct answer, but I hope that's helpful in terms of kind of how you can think about it fitting into upselling.
Definitely. And I can see there's a few more comments and questions. I'm just going to ask one more, but I would also love you to close out with kind of where people can get in touch as well. So maybe I'll ask this one question, then you can go into details on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So is there any place where we can get a standard set of inputs or see a kind of best practice model, and also a little bit more on how the coefficient column is calculated, which might be quite broad to kind of answer off the cuff, but yeah.
I don't think there's any one way to put together this model. Every product is so different, and your customers are so different than ours. And I'm going to create some more content about this, and when I do, I'll share it in the PMA Slack group. But I would say there's no one way to do this, and there's really no template, unfortunately. It's all about your individual product and your customers. The second part of the question, coefficients. It's just about like how strongly each of these components correlate with retention, right? So like I said earlier, you might have every one of these well-retained customers is using feature X, Y, and Z, but your entire customer base is too. So it's really not that interesting to focus on. But if the best customers are using features X, Y, Z, and the rest of your customer base is using X and Y, then Z correlates really strongly, right? I'm way oversimplifying it, but it's essentially how strong is the correlation? How much weight should you give this individual action versus having, in ours, there are six inputs. Not all 6 are equal, right?
Yeah, no, of course. Amazing. So yeah, for all these kind of follow-up questions and connecting about next steps or further information, where's the best place to get in touch?
Yeah, connect to me on LinkedIn, Eric Keating. That's my name right in front of you. Or feel free to send me an email. It's eric@appcues.com. Happy to reply.
Amazing. Thank you so much. So yeah, I will add that to the comment section as well, so people can follow up directly. But yeah, excellent session, Eric. And
awesome.
All the best.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Take care.
At Sandu, I'm responsible for building out our advocacy or evangelist community and managing our customer reference program to bring our customer stories to life to educate a wide variety of audiences, both internal and external.
Hello, wherever you're joining us from today, we want to say a huge welcome to our global community. We hope you're enjoying the Customer Marketing Summit. I also want to send out an extra special thank you to all our sponsors, partners, speakers, and participants who together have made this event possible. Their sessions are bursting with insights to help you level up. But remember, the learning doesn't stop here. If you haven't already, you can upgrade your pass to include access to all today's sessions on demand. Or you can become a PMA member and benefit from unlimited access to exclusive templates, frameworks, and our entire library of talks from our live events. And remember, have your questions at the ready. Simply post your question in the comments section and get awesome advice from an expert in the field. What's not to love about that? So now, on to the next talk.
Welcome to the Fireside chat on establishing a customer marketing strategy and developing advocates. I'm Bojana, Director of Marketing at Maze, and I'm the host for today's chat with Valeria, Senior Marketing Manager for Customer Marketing at Zendesk. Hi, Valeria. Maybe we can get started and you can introduce yourself and share a bit about your role at Zendesk.
Absolutely, thank you. Well, I'm Valeria, Senior Customer Marketing Manager at Zendesk. I'm responsible for building out our advocacy or evangelist community and managing our customer reference program to bring our customer stories to life to educate a wide variety of audiences, both internal and external.
Cool, thank you. And maybe we can kind of take a step back and look at what exactly is customer marketing at Zendesk, because same as product marketing, customer marketing, and in general marketing, they're very different at, depending on the company that you look at.
Absolutely, and we take a little different approach to probably more conventional customer marketing. But in a nutshell, customer marketing at Sandu is just really a group of programs that focuses on showcasing the stories of our customers. Our approach to customer marketing is really centered around maintaining great relationship with them. We give them the platform to feature their success so they can inspire others in their customer experience industry. So that's pretty much what is customer marketing for us.
Okay, thank you. And how do you measure success? So what are some of the metrics that you look at to measure whether your customer marketing is successful?
Absolutely. So one of the things is just really how we engage with our customers, how many times our customers participate in all the activities that we have planned for them. Obviously, some of them is also how much our activities influence pipeline. Obviously, video marketing, we are very interested in that, but we want to give this platform to our customers to just really showcase their success. So every time that they participate, either speaking our events, talking to our team, talking to our leadership, participating in a written customer story and things like that. That's how we measure success. Just kind of every time that we give them the platform, they participate. That's just the best thing ever.
Okay, so it's really around participation and engagement of your customers. That's
absolutely.
Yes. Okay, cool. So maybe we could kind of take a step back and look at how and when did customer marketing at Zendesk get started, and maybe also what team are you part of, or what team do you report into?
Yes, actually our team has gone through several periods of transformation in the past 3 years. Initially, our team started as just purely as a customer reference team, but we evolved so much because we are a critical resource for our company for customer reference, storytelling, and ultimately customer inspiration. Currently, we report to our VP Enterprise Marketing, which allows us to connect with many different kind of customers all over the world.
Okay, and how big is the team?
We are right now 3 people. Okay. No counting our VP. So it's a small but very powerful group of 3.
Okay, that's interesting. And so as we mentioned earlier, teams are set up differently. What are the benefits of reporting into product marketing? What does that mean for you as a customer marketing team?
Exactly. We actually are in a unique position to be close to our customers because we work really closely to our PMMs. We have a great understanding of our products, our different offerings, so we can actually translate that into the different stories that we showcase with our customers. We are also able to build our own partnership relationship with them, so we can empower them so they can inspire, and we can bring better relationship to the business world. I think we are also in the position to build trust with our customers because we are part of this wider group. We can make sure that we make the most of each conversation with each of our customers.
Okay, that's very insightful. Thank you. And so you work very closely with your customers. You're in the enterprise marketing team. And then what does cross-functional collaboration look like for customer marketing at Zendesk? What are some of the other teams that you work very closely with?
We are highly cross-functional team at Zendesk. We just not only work with the rest of the marketing organization. For example, we work very closely with communications, campaigns, social media, but we also work really closely with sales and success. We also enable and empower, for example, regional marketing teams and other regional teams to execute on customer marketing initiatives in their regions by providing a program foundation so they can really tell relevant local stories. That's the key because we are a small team of 3, so we really need to empower and enable all of these other teams so they can just kind of replicate what we do. always keeping the customer at heart. And that give us a great position because we are in product marketing, and one of the things that product marketing does is really enable other teams, right? So I think that's a really great position to do a lot of things at scale when you have very limited a group of people actually executing on that.
Okay, that's very interesting. So when you say empowering, it's really kind of using the customer stories to empower the sales team or local marketing teams to, I guess, get Zendesk in front of the target audiences.
So there's a couple of things. One, we want everybody to be great storytellers. We want everybody to know the best customer stories that are relevant for example, you're a sales rep, you should know like a handful of its stories that they're going to be relevant for different scenarios. For example, for industry, what is your segment? So you should have a pocket of great customer stories and you should be experts on that. And our customer marketing team really empowers you with all of the resources so we can teach you all those stories. For customer marketing teams or regional marketing teams in the region, we make sure that they can tell those stories and they have the same voice as a as a unique company, because sometimes they use different agencies, they use their own resources to create their own programs. We want to make sure that everything has the same feeling, the same quality, also like the same way that we engage with our customers. So there's like the two part of that.
Okay, so essentially that means that the customer marketing team at Zendesk, they're kind of the central point for anything customer marketing related, and then the local teams or other marketing teams or even the sales teams can kind of check back in with you, make sure that the stories are on brand, but you're kind of that central point, but they can still function independently.
Absolutely, and it's more than just customer stories, but just also like the way that we engage with customers. It should be like a cross board. Everybody should be engaging with our customer in a unified way. So our program really provides that foundation and all the guidelines and all the support that they need to be successful in the region. So they can just really tailor to each region as well. Each customer is very different, each market is very different, and we want to keep that in mind. And because everything we do at Zendesk is with our customers at heart, we need to be able that we can replicate that in a way that is relevant to them.
Okay, that's interesting. So the customer marketing team also ensures that the way everyone communicates with the customer is consistent.
Exactly, mainly with obviously marketing activities.
Okay, that makes sense. So maybe we can talk a little bit more about how do you successfully develop loyal customers into advocates? What does that look like?
Of course, I truly believe that cultivating and nurturing relationships with customers is really the best way to drive customer advocacy. We put maintaining great relationship with our customers at the heart of everything we do, as I mentioned previously. We do this not only because it's beneficial for us as a company, but it's mostly because we really care about the individuals in the companies that use our products. We really emphasize the human component in our customer marketing programs because they are the people who are changing the business world. For me, at the end, it's always about being helpful, keeping it human, and truly care for our advocates.
Okay, thank you. And can you give me an example of a customer marketing program or initiative that has been particularly successful at Zendesk?
Yeah, something that is very close to my heart is our Zendesk Luminaries. Our Luminaries is our community for engaged leaders in customer experience. We provide a platform where they can share their stories, they can showcase their expertise, and they can also network with other customers from all over their globe. Our Luminaries program really enable us, customer marketing, to nurture those customer relationships and really provide a cohesive customer program foundation for all Zendesk customers to first engage with us as a unified experience, but also so they can share the stories, best practices, and lessons learned with the community as a whole.
Okay, that's really interesting. I actually had a chance to look at the Luminaries landing page before this chat, and I was actually very impressed, and it looked like a really great initiative. I'm curious to know, do you have to proactively reach out to those customers, or do customers come to you and they actually want to participate in this community?
Yes. So there are actually two ways. They actually reach out to us and they participate. I think we at Zendesk, we really emphasize relationships, and I think that's how it starts. Obviously, through this program, our luminaries can participate in a lot of opportunities, including like exclusive networking opportunities. They can also get recognition that for all the amazing things that they do in the company. They can also interact with us, and they can give us feedback. They can share their ideas. We can also showcase their exceptional customer experiences and stories in different platforms, as I said. And they can also share those best practices and lessons learned in a one-on-one interactions. So yeah, they come to us. Sometimes we do reach out to them because some people, are not aware about the program. But we have to say that we have a really good customer base in our luminaries program.
That's great. So you really highlight kind of the successes that your customers are having within that community, and then you're also creating that networking and kind of show and tell, so learning community as well, so that they can connect with other customer experience professionals and share their experience and learn from others.
Exactly. I think that's one of the biggest benefits. It's not just the benefits to us, just share the stories, but what is there for the customer to participate in our program. There are so many other advocacy programs out there. There is so many IT vendors, and they do customer marketing programs in a way or another. So we need to really provide the benefits that they care the most about. And that's what it comes about. They really want relationship. They want to build the network. They want to enhance their career. So we kind of provide a platform so they can do that.
Yeah, that's great. And how long has this program been running? When did you start?
We launched it last year during the pandemic. We had a big plan during our user conference in March 2020. We're going to launch it. We're going to have so many activations during the conference, but unfortunately we couldn't do that. So we had to just really pivot it and do something quick. And we actually launched it online in a digital form. We have about over 3,000 customers actually being part of our program right now. We are really looking forward that we can take these in person, hopefully soon, probably in the next few years when the world comes back to normal, because we really love to engage with our customers. We really like to really hang out with them and get to know them. The digital world is great just to reach people outside of your borders, but we also truly believe that those relationships, you need to build them in person, and we want to really provide that so customers can engage with us, they can engage with other people. So hopefully that could happen very soon.
And do you have any ideas in terms of what that would look like? Would those be local events or big conference or?
Yeah, so initially we were doing in our user conference, our biggest conference, and we were taking our luminaries in a tour. We had planned about 4-5 big small conference in different in countries around the world. One for EMEA, one for APAC, LATAM, another one for AMER because the United States is really big. So it's in certain small places, but also, as I said, because we partner with our regional marketing teams, they can also take this foundation and all of that we have to do with luminaries, so they can actually take it to their local events, user groups, those meet and greet and things like that.
That sounds very exciting. So it's a very new program still, seems to be very successful so far. And it seems like you have already plans of how you can even amplify that with your local marketing teams and every post-pandemic doing things in person. I'm curious to know, what is something else that you're very excited about? Do you have any initiatives or any programs on the roadmap that you personally are excited about?
Absolutely. First, we kind of take these luminaries actually in person to our customers. That's something that is on our radar, and we want to do it as soon as we can. Another thing that I'm very excited and really looking forward is to really explore in other ways that we can showcase the voice of our customers, especially around multimedia assets in this new digital time. For example, we need to reinvent what customer videos are going to look like. We need to bring those back, but because we really cannot be with our customer in person in the same room, we need to really find a way that we can first tell the story that it deserves. Second, we need to make sure that we keep these videos human, because we are all about the people behind those companies. So we are trying to kind of reinvent that. Hopefully we can start doing that very soon. We have a few ideas, so hopefully we'll be able to share a few examples in the next few months with you.
That's great. Looking forward to seeing what you come up with. Yeah, I guess it's a challenge these days, right? Like, and I mean, right now because of the pandemic, but even as companies are growing, you have more and more international customers. Even then, it's a challenge to really connect with them. Can't always send a video team everywhere. So it's really, yeah, it's a bit of a challenge to come up with interesting ways to show those or tell those stories. Yeah, so I'm very excited to see what you guys come up with.
Yeah, absolutely. As you say, we want to tell like local stories, tailored stories that are relevant for different markets. Sometimes you can do it here locally, kind of keeping your distance, but when you have to travel with your video crew or find some of the local agencies that that you have worked with them before, it's a little bit challenging, and the world is still pretty close at the moment for good reasons. So hopefully we will be able to kind of go back to that. We did actually a small project that is still going with our social media team, doing a social media activation for some digital assets with this new slogan of champions of customer service. So we are creating some digital videos, short, but we cannot really have our customer there. So we kind of we had to be creative of kind of having some images, some Zoom headshots, some voices and things like that. But we always want now, obviously, to have our customer in front of us, in front of the camera. So hopefully we can do that very soon.
We're looking forward to seeing what you guys come up with. Okay, so maybe to wrap up, since we're kind of at the end of the time here, if anyone is interested in learning more about customer marketing, do you have any resources or anything that you would recommend for people to look at, or anyone to connect with, maybe even you?
Absolutely, they can reach out to me. Probably all my details are there in this event. There are also a lot of things online. PMA has a lot of also resources that are putting together for customer marketing. You can access those. You can also look into more like industry resources. Gartner, Forrester, they have a lot of resources. Some of those are not free, but if you have an analyst team in your company, you can check if they have licenses, and then you can access those reports that are more curated for high level industries. You can also, LinkedIn, reach out to me via LinkedIn if you want. There is just a small group of customer marketing. I think the community is growing, and I think everybody is really willing to really share the ideas. Sometimes when I want to bounce ideas with other people, I just reach out to them through LinkedIn and say, hey, I know you're in customer marketing. Will you mind just grab 30 minutes and do like a virtual meet and greet? And we can just do that. Most people, if they're in customer marketing, believe me, they are more willing to share what they have in mind.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I think sometimes it's actually just the best way to learn, right? Is reach out to your peers, get their feedback, see what they're doing. That's actually worked really well for me as well in product marketing. I would just reach out to people either on PMA or on LinkedIn and just have a chat with them, see what they're doing, and really kind of learning from them. So yeah, no, that makes sense. Cool. Thank you so much, Valeria. Yeah, thank you so much for this chat. It was super interesting. And yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. It was really, really great to share a little bit about my experiences and hopefully all my inspirational projects in the future.
As we prepare to unleash another exciting session, we just want to say a massive thank you to all our partners, sponsors, you, and our ensemble of speakers and participants for helping us bring this pioneering event to life. I hope you are finding today's sessions insightful, and I want to remind you that the learnings don't stop here. If you haven't already, you can upgrade your pass to include access to all today's sessions on demand. Or you can become a PMA member and benefit from unlimited access to exclusive templates, frameworks, and our entire back catalogue of event content. Now, back to the sessions. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the next session. I am about to hand you over to the very capable hands of Gal Baran, who joins us from Crowdvocate. So over to you, Gal.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Rose. And so happy to be in this event. It's amazing to see all the people participating in all the great sessions. Today, so my name is Gal. I'm the co-founder of Crowdvocate. And today we're going to talk about streamlining customer marketing with associating it to the journey, to product insights, and how all that can impact advocacy and upsell. We're going to talk about the art and science of engaging your customer base at scale, across their life cycle. At the end, we'll have some time for Q&A, but before we reach that, I'll touch a little bit about an intro to Crowdvocate, the pillars of B2B customer marketing, 4 tips to get started, nothing to do with software or tools, streamlining engagement across the journey with data, with insights, and then turning all that into a more automated, scalable activation of your customer base for advocacy. And lastly, how do you tie all that to revenue influence, and how do you basically leverage referenceability and advocacy for revenue and upsell? So let's dive in. Crowdvocate is really the only purpose-built platform for customer marketing that can also be leveraged by product marketers. It's a holistic approach to manage advocacy programs, manage lifecycle engagement, upsell expansion, but also reference automation, loyalty and rewards gamification if you want to do that with your customer base, managing usage of content and the attribution. So how much does that influence the business, and really the journey tracking and tying it all together. It's a holistic approach because we believe that customer marketing is holistic. For us, customer marketing is everything post-sale. We had sessions before that talked about onboarding and adoption. That's right, that's part of customer marketing, because on top of what customer success does, customer marketing can be engaged with scaling adoption, scaling content to your customers. You have events, user groups, cabs, all that stuff, communities, right? So you might have several different communities, you might have user forums. Engaging all those and leveraging the data from those is part of what customer marketing can both do to collect data. Imagine taking data from community who's active and then using that for advocacy, and also bring in data to the community and help people go into the community and be more active. Of course, there's different types of advocacy, reviews, customer stories, a lot of things around that, talking to analysts. And there's also voice of customer feedback and input. There's references, right? Reference calls, reference content. And then there's lifecycle marketing, such as upsell and the overall communication of activities, events, and whatnot. And the thing is that for your customer, that's all just one thing. It's part of their engagement with you as a customer. It's part of their life cycle with your product and with your brand. They don't see those as pillars. They don't see those as different departments. They don't see those necessarily as programs, right? They are customer of product X. And within their journey, they onboard, they join a user group, maybe they're in your customer advisory board, maybe they're active in your community, maybe they can do now a review or provide a customer story or take a reference call. At a certain point, they're relevant for an upsell. That's their journey. That's how they see it. That's how you should see it. That's how you tie all the pieces together. But before you do that, when you get started, here are 4 tips that we've seen work with all our customers and in general. And it really talks about not starting with a product, but starting with a plan. So, or with a platform, but starting with a plan. So first things first, you have to define strategy and KPIs. What is your year 1 goal? What are the numbers? And it has to be numeric. It has to be, what are the numbers you need to reach at the end of the year? Maybe that's the number of advocates. Maybe it's the number of upsell revenue or campaigns that you've run. Maybe it's the number of people that participated in reference calls, or the number of deals that leverage reference calls. Maybe it's the number of new customer stories, or the number of new customer stories only for enterprise business, only for this very specific new product that you're launching. But it has to be numeric, because that's what you're going to be measured on, and you have to agree on that with management and your buy-in. And the best way to start with that is understanding what is the company's KPIs and deriving from that. So if the company really wants to focus on upsell of this new feature, of course, customer marketing program should support that. Then you want to collaborate with everybody. You're kind of the quarterback. Customer marketing is the quarterback. You're talking to internal marketing teams because you need their help, and they need your help in demand generation because demand generation needs content that customers can generate. You're talking to sales because they need the references. Customer success maybe needs to approve and help you get more references. Product teams can help you move more messaging and also get feedback. And of course, you have to have executive sponsorship to run these programs. Then you want to talk to your customer. That's the third tip. Talk to them directly. When customer marketers don't have direct access to customers, it's not good. You want to be able to talk to the customers, find and reveal your own champions, not just trust on account managers or CSMs to tell you who the champions are, but also try and find more accounts and more people within accounts that maybe people didn't realize there are champions. And you want to consult with customers, maybe only your top 20, but have customers like kind of your cab, but your internal cab, the customer marketing cab, that tell you what can work, what they're willing to do, what rewards should look like, what programs they think are cool. You want to have your own consultants within your customer base. And the last tip, of course, is measure and share it. You have to track, like we said, and measure numeric results. And then you have to blow your own horn. You have to let all the organization know how customers are influencing, how customer marketing is influencing. Those are the 4 tips to get started. Now, once you've started, let's talk about how you engage the journey. So this is like a basic, typical customer journey. Maybe customers, they start working with your product, they have a welcome message or whatnot. Then they kind of go through some kind of journey of onboarding, knowing the product. At some point, they're activated, they're users, maybe after a month, maybe after 3 months, doesn't really matter. And then you start turning them maybe into advocates. Can you write a review? Can you participate in these events? Can you speak in the events? Can you, write a story, give us a quote, and so on and so forth. And at some point, you might even want to advance that journey. Hey, we'd like to have you on our customer advisory board as a consultant, or maybe you could be in our beta group. And at some point, maybe, hey, your company should actually, or could actually upsell or cross-sell or whatnot. So, but you want to tie those together. Now, the way that to do that, or the way that CrowdVocate does that, is it ties that journey to data that the company has, right? So, for example, CRM data, like what is their account, what is their industry, what products they have and what products they don't have. So you know what to upsell them to. How frequently are they using the product? Are they satisfied? What is their health score? Taking all that data from CRM and other data sources like BI or whatnot, and then adding all that data to the journey data. Hey, they logged into your community, they're active in the community, they're contributors. What does that tell us about them? Or they're in the academy, they finished the courses. What do we know? They're certified, right? They're active in the blog, they're interested in specific types of content, in the knowledge base. And of course, in your product, they log in, they're active, etc. So combining all those data points gives you a really holistic picture about your customer's journey and also the data about the account and the company. And that's really how you can then tie it all together and engage the journey in a contextual manner. Different people with different titles in different countries using different features of your product in different stages of their life cycle should and could get different messages that are relevant to their journey. And that's how you basically activate them, because it's contextual to them. It's personalized to their journey, to where they are with your product and with their journey. So that basic product journey that we talked about, or lifecycle journey that we talk about, becomes a much more insightful journey. Hey, we know that they're in the product, and we know that they're also advocating because they share a success story, and we know that the account upselled, and we know that they're also in the training portal, but they're also doing a review. And it becomes a timeline of data, time, CRM data, advocacy activities, and how each one taps onto another, because they're really going up on the ladder of engagement, the ladder of advocacy. They're moving slowly, and becoming more engaged, more advocates, more of your partners, not just customers, more of your partners within that journey. And that's what you want to track. And each time kind of raise the bar one more. Hey, you've been in the reference pool. I think you could also maybe speak in our webinars. You spoke in our webinars, maybe you could also speak to an analyst. That's kind of how you want to build those, right? And with data about your customers, you can do that. So you could basically know about each individual customer, where they are in their journey, because maybe the company itself has 3 users that the CSM engages with, and 1 key contact that the account manager engages with, but really there's 10 or 20 or 15 or whatever, 7 users, and some of them are not engaged, but they love your product and they're happy to do stuff and they're happy to talk. They're just not the key contact people, right? And maybe they could be your Trojan horse, your go-to in that company when you want to do campaigns with that company, and only then bring in the more senior people. I get a lot of questions like, how do I tap into executives? Well, maybe you want to start with the lower people in that company who could bring you the executives or can bring them to the table. Or maybe you need to create different journeys for executives and for more, for power users or junior users. But data and engagement helps you see all of that. And when you have data, then you can engage very personalized at scale. So you can say, this person, we're only asking them to speak in our events or be on our podcast or talk to analysts or whatever that is, but because of their title, because of their very specific use case, or that person from that company, we have to have them in our reference pool because they're one of only 10 enterprise customers that has, in the retail industry, that has this feature. We need them there. So that's what we're going to ask of them. But doing all that automatically at scale based on understanding their profiles, but also their journey, and then reaching out to them. And how do you reach out to them? You reach out to them everywhere and anywhere and any way. Because some customers would answer to an email, but only 20% of them might open the email to begin with. Some customers would answer to an in-app messages, but if they're very senior, they might never be in your product, in your app. Some customers would engage on Slack or by text or by visiting a designated customer portal or by seeing a pop-up when they join up to your virtual events. That's how you engage at scale. You don't tell them this is where you have to go or this is how we engage. You let them choose out of a facet of a lot of different engagement types. And you track all that all the way back into CRM, all the way back into understanding. From this company, we have 10 people who are engaged, 10 people who are advocates. This is how they like to engage. This is how frequently they want to engage. This is what they're willing to do. This is how we're going to leverage them this month. And after we do that, we're going to automatically take them to the next level of the journey and leverage them that way next month. Last thing we're going to touch is how do you leverage all that to basically create business impact. So at the end of the day, customer marketing can influence all the pillars of revenue that SaaS companies have and most companies have. Customer marketers influence new business, new sales, because advocacy, by definition, influences new business and new sales because you have references, reference calls, customer stories or reference content, even reviews bring leads to, of course, to your website. A lot of the advocacy activity influences demand generation and supports new business, right? And for most B2B companies, between 40 to 70% of the new business, of the new deals, touch advocacy. In some companies, it might be 90%, but I mean, in average, it would be 40 to 70% of every new deal, every new customer, in some way or form, touched advocacy. The second pillar of revenue for companies is upsell and expansion. Normally, upsell and expansion is roughly 40% of a company's revenue. And again, today, we've seen in the pandemic a big shift to that, and people talked about it, in the sessions before. Companies started to say, hey, but if we're engaging our customers anyway, and if they're in our advocacy program anyway, and if they're, our champions, why aren't we also leveraging that to do upsell? So, I mean, if they love so much and they're the most engaged customers, why don't we grow their share of wallet? Why don't we basically market to our existing customers, knowing their journey, knowing their engagement level, knowing their advocacy level, and turn them into even bigger customers? And for that, you also need advocacy, because you'll take a customer that did that journey and has a customer story of how they moved from feature A and added also feature B of your platform, and you'll take that customer story and serve it to your existing advocates who have only feature A and haven't yet also purchased feature B. So advocacy, customer stories and whatnot, even reviews, they all could serve also for upsell campaigns, cross-sell campaigns, expansion campaigns. If you want to do expansion to another division within a bank, okay? You're going to use your champions in division A to move into division B, that's ABM. Why do a whole external campaign and try to target that bank in LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter and whatnot, when you could actually, you have champions just in a different division. That's how you leverage your advocates to grow and your customer marketing activities to grow upsell. And lastly, and research show that the more customers are engaged, the more they're loyal, and we know loyalty programs from Starbucks to whatnot, the more they're going to stay and buy and repurchase. So advocacy and customer marketing basically influence, of course, retention. And you want to prove that as well. You want to show that from your accounts that are engaged, that are in your different customer marketing programs, some of them, ideally, 30 to 50% more retain than others. And again, that's how you can show internally to the business that all these programs have a business impact. They impact new revenue, they impact upsell or expansion or cross-sell revenue, and they impact retention revenue. But to do that, you have to track. So let's take the example of how you do that and how you track that with upsell. So picking upsell or upsell, basically what you want to do is you want to build at least some of your campaigns to be revenue driven. And we sometimes talk to customer marketers or advocacy managers and we talk about, hey, but my metrics is only how many advocates I have, or how many customer stories I created, or where do we stand on reviews versus our competition. Those metrics are great, but they're not at the end of the day the metric that your CRO or CMO or CEO really look at. Because at the end of the day, you have to tie it somehow to dollars. So you can add for example, an upsell campaign where you basically say, okay, I already know my customer engaging in so many different activities. Why don't we take a cohort that is available for an upsell right now, right? And product marketing and customer marketing should talk about that and define that cohort. And within that cohort, let's see who are our champions, right? And then we're going to do a nurturing campaign like we do maybe on our email marketing, but only in customer marketing frameworks, where we're going to educate them about this new feature. And we're going to, even survey them as advocates or customers engaging in the programs about their pain that feature solves for. And then we're going to give them social proof from another customer within the program that just did that journey and did upsell. And then finally, we're going to ask them if they, are okay to talk to an expert or sales and make that lead inside Salesforce or CRM. So we actually can track the fact that we've generated an upsell lead, right? Same way that regular marketing generates new business leads, which are MQLs, and then sales turns them into SQLs. So think of, instead of, marketing qualified leads, CMQLs, customer marketing qualified leads that then move into whoever needs to close those. And then lastly, you want to measure that, of course. You want to be able to say, okay, how do I attribute that to ROI? And again, you have to track. You have to find ways with if you have a platform and tracks it, that's great. If not, you have to find ways within your tech stack to basically know how many referrals turned into deals, and how many references influenced deals that closed one, and how many upsell campaigns turned into opportunities, revenue, closed one. And you also have to agree, even with your internal teams like sales, how much of that is attributed back to you, just so you can say, listen, this is the revenue we influenced, and this is the direct attribution of revenue that we can have, because that helps them. And the easiest way to say that is to say, listen, can we agree that 1% of every deal that customer marketing influences, that advocacy influences, is associated or attributed to customer marketing? Most sales teams say, sure, 1%, who cares? 1% out of, $100 million is $1 million. Not that big, but you could at least attribute that and show we influenced 50 million and we have direct attribution of 1 million, right? And maybe that also tells us what the budget we should have. But maybe you can talk about 2% or 3%, but it helps run the numbers. So with that, I kind of covered a bit on, if we started like what is customer marketing in our eyes and how it has to do with the entire customer journey and the entire pillars of touching customers, whether it is within communities, as part of their onboarding, as part of taking them to the next level as advocates, as part of then taking them to the next level as customers and doing an upsell or expansion, of course, retention, but really tapping into the customer journey, right? Because that helps you then grow the lifetime value of each one of those customers, both their share of wallet with, again, cross and upsell, but also the lifetime value because they brought in 5 or 10 or 25 other new customers because of their advocacy and because of all their activities. But if you can track and show that, that's how you show the value of customer marketing. And you also grow your internal resources and team and whatnot, but you also really align the organization to understand that customer marketing is that quarterback and that all the teams need not only to come and ask customer marketing to help, but they also need to help you to grow the business. And with that, I'm going to stop. I hope this gave you some food for thought. And I guess we're going to open this up for a few questions.
Absolutely. Thank you for that fantastic presentation, Gal. So we've got a couple of questions that I'm going to put to you. We've got plenty of time to run through them. So when you are scaling a customer marketing strategy, how do you maintain that level of personalization required to really kind of show value to each of the customers that you're working with?
I love that question. That's great. So you're right. I mean, we talk about relationships. We talk about generating, personal relationships and whatnot. So how do we do that at scale? And I talked about the contextual journey, and I think that's really the answer. So let's take an example of, Sarah, whatever. And she's a customer, right? And you want to create a personal relationship with her. If you know with data, right? Data-driven relationship. If you know that her NPS is high, she's satisfied, and she's super active in your community, so she's a contributor in the community, and she's done all your training and certifications already by now, so she's an expert really. Then if you reach out to Sarah automatically at scale, but still with a personal message, hey Sarah, amazing, you're one of our top contributors in the community. And you're the expert. You did all the trainings possible. You're a superstar. We have to have you in our customer advisory board. And you probably wouldn't do that for the customer advisory board. So we have to have you in our reference pool. Or we really want you to join the reference pool because you're such a champ or an expert. Or we really want to hear your story or a video testimonial because you're probably one of our top experts. Can you do that? That's a super personal message, super contextual to Sarah. Really is at scale based on data and understanding her journey. I hope I answered with that.
Yeah, very thoroughly. Absolutely. So there's a couple of comments as well about how customer marketers can struggle to really demonstrate their business impact and kind of prove ROI. Do you have any tips to share on that?
Yeah, so I think, it definitely is a challenge. So, the easy answer, which I'm going to say, but then I'm going to also go to the more harder question. The easy answer is, find technology that supports that, right? Tech today, at least some of the tech can track everything from UTMs, tracking links and knowing if they were used. And of course, for example, CrowdVocate connects into the opportunity within CRM and tells you how opportunities leverage references and how opportunities leverage content and even, with reviews or referrals brought in deals. So, tech helps do that. But generally speaking, again, if you're not using tech or you're just starting on this journey, I would really start tracking the dots. It's harder without tech, but for example, you do know how many references you serve, right? So let's say in a quarter you serve 20 reference calls, whatever. You can see how many of those reference calls closed won in CRM. And you can say, listen, out of those 20, 15 closed won, and they had a customer call. So I think we influenced that amount of revenue, and you do that report. And then you go to, for example, reviews. You could actually see with websites that track that, how many leads came to your website from G2. You could track that. You know how many came. So you could say, listen, I don't know how many of them eventually filled the form. If you use UTMs, you would know, but at least I know that 1,000 people in the month of March came from G2 to our website. And hey, those 1,000 people came because of the reviews we put up there. So, I mean, if you don't have the tech that supports it, you need to kind of do the reverse engineering of each and every activity that you do, referrals, reviews, references, stories, and try to create the formulas that make sense in your mind. It's not going to be 100% accurate. It's not going to be all the data, but it's going to give you some kind of sense and a discussion to share with your managers. And hopefully when they see that, they say, okay, this is interesting. Maybe we do need to track it better and whatnot.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you have any examples of how you would define a cohort of upsell customers?
Yeah, of course. So most companies kind of, and again, product marketers many times are involved with this as well, but I mean, most companies would kind of know their cohorts in the sense that they would say, okay, maybe we have a base product. And I'll take HubSpot as an easy example without, just because I hope that people know their products. And this is not saying that this is their campaigns. I'm just giving it as an example. So, I mean, if HubSpot has a CRM product and they have a marketing product and they have a sales product and they have a customer success product, basically they have 4 product lines, if you want to call them like that. Now, they probably know that if you have, or they have their own kind of notions of if you have CRM, maybe we first want to upsell sales, or maybe you first want to upsell marketing. And that would normally be the cohort. So they would say, okay, if I have a customer that's using CRM and they're with us for, let's say, at least 3 months, and it seems like they're power users, so maybe they're logging into CRM once a day. I'm making all this up just as an example. And they log into CRM once a day. And not only that, they also basically are, maybe they filled an NPS and they're happy. And we see they also have whatever 5 users in there. Okay, I think it's a good match to start upselling them to our sales platform. Maybe we'll start with our free sales platform. Maybe we'll start with our starter plan or whatnot. So I mean, that's a debate. What do you want to take them on first? And you can do trial and error. But basically, you want to know from each one of your product lines, what is the next best match of upsell? And then to the people within that product line, after a certain level of, again, time they're in the product, satisfaction, experience, usage, hit that upsell track and button and run it through for 2 weeks, a month, whatever, and see what happens. And again, it does take some trial and error, but on the other hand, it's also pretty straightforward. You have to do the thought process beforehand. It doesn't have to do anything with technology. You first map the dots of who should be upsold to what based on their situation, and then you just play the campaigns.
Yeah, that totally makes sense and great advice. So final question just before we wrap up. Are there any adjustments you would make if your customer contact is C-suite level versus a mid-level manager?
So I think, yes, of course, the answer. There are many adjustments you want to make. So you want to make adjustments in the sense of the message, and you want to make adjustments in the sense of the channel, and you want to make adjustments in the program. So if it's middle range practitioners, whatnot, then yes, gamification would probably work for them. And you could ask them more. Maybe you could ask them something once a week or once every 2 weeks. And you could do that kind of in multiple channels and, even inside your product and inside your community, because they're going to be there. So, the channels that you're going to engage, and the messaging could be, hey, we love your support and we love what you're doing with us. And, we know about your activity and we'd love to have you as an even bigger champion, bigger contributor and whatnot. But when you're thinking about managers, C-level, whatnot, it's totally different. The programs and the messaging has to talk a little bit about exclusivity. Suddenly they're not like everybody, right? It's a more closed program. And the channel should be maybe first an email. Maybe even the first approach should come from their CSM or from their account executive, and only then the intro and you step in. And it should talk about what's in it for them, less from, here's a gift card or you're a great contributor or whatnot, but more about how it influences their personal brand, their company's brand, how it influences what they can achieve as managers and show as results within their organization, not with you. So yeah, those are different things that I think, want to look at.
Absolutely. So I just really want to say a huge thank you, really informative session and some great kind of questions and further information that you shared there, Gal. So finally, just before we call it a day, where can people get in touch with you if they want to kind of follow up?
Well, you know, I'm on LinkedIn too much of the time. So they're welcome to connect me on LinkedIn. My email is here, gal.biran@crowdvocate.com. We'll be happy to connect with anybody from the customer marketing and product marketing sphere. And thank you so much for this amazing event and this opportunity.
No problem. Yeah, thanks again. Bye.
Bye.